Welcome back to Sebring. Live coverage, flag to flag here on Speed Vision. The Exxon Superflow 12 hours at Sebring is currently led by the factory Audi, but now in second place following a misfire problem on one of the factory cars. You just saw the car of Stefan Johansson. Now let's get more on this problem with Calvin Fish.
We're in the Yost pit. Dieter Gas runs the #2 machine. What were you able to see on the telemetry with the car and the misfire?
Okay, it was difficult to see it on the telemetry, but we just called the car in and we changed the motronic box and a part on the ignition loom, and now the car is running fine again.
Hero is radioed in and says he has a clean car?
Yes, the car is running fine again.
Okay, there you have it, guys. Seems like everything's cleaned up, but I must say, very unusual to see the bottom of that thing.
Well, here's the situation. As you see, Walter Salas bringing one of the Panos cars into the pits. If you've been with us since the beginning of this race at about 10:40 a.m. Eastern time, you know they had tremendous trouble with an alternator on this car. It just served a stop and go. I'm not sure what that's for. Possibly pit lane speed violation.
Well, yeah, that's the least of their problems right now.
You've been out of the race too long, so we're going to give you a stop and go. Meanwhile, on the track, the #1 car in the hand of Laurent Aiello is on a lap of its own. Now Stefan Johansson, the second place car, is shown on the same lap, but behind them is Emanuele Pirro in that now healthy second factory car. It's going to be interesting to see if Pirro can make a dent in Johansson's margin.
Yeah, so that ignition problem has cost that team. And look at this, there's some traffic. And this is the lead car now coming up to put another lap on the champion car. Here we go back onto the Corvette. And right up ahead there is the factory car, the #1 car, trying to put a lap on the champion car. The champion car sits now in 4th position. That, of course, is one of the customer Audis.
Right now, Dorsey Schrader, Speed Vision's own Dorsey Schrader, is at the controls of the champion R8 just ahead. Aiello looks down the inside. Dorsey may get pinned behind slower traffic. No, he dives. He can't do it. That GT car balking everyone. And now it's Aiello that gets balked, and Schrader escapes.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's certainly been catching. There he goes, braking zone here for turn 10. Nice clean pass. But I'll tell you what, very impressive, the performance of Stefan Johansson and Guy Smith. Of course, they're the only ones in the prototype class that are running with just 2 drivers. All of these other teams have 3 drivers. And I think as we move deeper into this race, it will be interesting to see how those two fare on the physical side. Right now, they've got their car up into 2nd position. This car leading, but Johansson is on the same lap. Yes, they're about 1 minute and 25 seconds behind the lead car, but they are on the lead lap with the factory team.
That's a good point. There are 3 drivers on the championship driver strength. We've been talking about Dorsey Schrader and Andy Wallace, but Ralph Kellener's, a very experienced and very quick sports car driver, is also sharing that champion Audi. On the front straightaway, porpoising over the cracks. This was originally a World War II era airfield, training field for Bomber Command. It was known as Hendricks Field back then. See the Panos in the hands of Walter Salas, open wheel veteran from Brazil.
And that car officially right now is shown in last position, having only completed 15 laps. The lead car, as a reference, has completed 121 laps. So this really has turned into a test session for this Panos LMP07.
Wild aerodynamics on this car.
Well, it's hard to believe it's a front engine car when you look at it in terms of frontal area. As Alan was saying earlier, that engine, which is just under those 2 snorkels there in the middle of the car, is so small, so compact. And they've really done a very impressive job. This looks like the 23 car in the pit lane.
Second place car in GT, second to the V8 BMW in the hands of Jörg Müller and JJ Leto. This is Emmanuel Collard in the car, sharing with Sascha Maassen and Lucas Luhr.
And you saw one of the, I'm sorry, Bob, you saw one of the crew members there open the door, and they opened a little flap, which was actually a cooler, and they dumped something into that cooler. That was probably ice that they dumped in there to create drinking water for the drivers.
See the crewmen with the air guns on the wheel hubs, waiting for the refueling to stop.
They cannot touch that car until that probe comes out of the fuel tank.
Well, technically, I think some of them aren't actually touching. Now they go to work. Brake dust flies. While the sister car has already finished the stop and back out. Most of the GT cars using those amber headlight gels. The BMWs do not. Down toward what was once the old carousel before this corner was reconfigured. Now on board the #1 factory Audi. Laurent Aiello on his way. Stefan Johansson runs second factory Audi in third. Audis 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be back to Sebring.
The Superflow 12 Hours at Sebring is brought to you by Prudential, your rock-solid choice for insurance, investments, real estate, and financial services. And Exxon Superflow Motor Oil. Superflow provides protection that's fast, protection that lasts.
Welcome back to Sebring. Less than 8 hours to go now. Bob Varsha along with Jeremy Dale, Calvin Fish, and Andrew Marriott. We've been with you since the green flag at about 10:40 a.m. Eastern time this morning. Shortly, we will have another crew of Speed Vision announcers in, led by Greg Kramer, along with two-time overall winner at Sebring, Derek Daly, and former World Sports Car Champion, Derek Bell. So be sure to stand by for that and stay with us all day long. The leader in the GTS category, the #4 factory Chevy Corvette, making its way onto the ALMS straightaway. Andy Pilgrim at the controls. Up to about 165 miles an hour before getting hard on the brakes. Here's the leader in the GT category, that new 4-liter V8 powered BMW M3 in the hands of Jörg Mueller and JJ Leto. We'll take a break and you'll have a new set of announcers when we return live for more flag-to-flag coverage of the 12 hours at Sebring. We will be back later in the evening. Stay with us.
Started again. To get me started. To get me started, son. You better get up. You better get up while you can. I'll make a dash in the lazy boy 100. I started slow, but I lean back and pull you under it. They say the competition lags behind precision wasting. Don't need a review. I know it's my smoke that they are tasting. Damn, another tragic jam. I know I'm supposed to use my brakes on the gas I slam. You better get up. You better get up while you can. And put a crash in the lazy boy 100. Don't need no luck, we aim to suck just for the fun of it. They say you can't be canceled, don't you bother wasting. Your precious energy is victory for the taste. And I say, damn, another mud grand slam. I think it's time to celebrate now that we rule the land. You better get up, you better get up while you can.
Welcome back to Sebring, everybody, as we are well and settled into this 12-hour grind, which, as you saw, has certainly taken the toll, as it has every year in its 48 previous runnings, on the competitors and on the equipment. I'm Greg Kramer, joined now, of course, with Derek Bell and Derek Daly as well. And Derek Daly, you've won this twice before, 90 and 91. On St. Paddy's Day, dressed the part, you're ready to go, but you know what this middle grind of this race is like.
And you know, grind, Greg, is a good word to use, because I've been fortunate enough to go through the grind with some of the best teams in the business when we won this here twice in a row. But make no mistake about it, although you have to grind through the middle hours, you have to go fast at all times if you're ultimately going to control your destiny and try and win it. But also remember, you need a little bit of a dose of the look of the Irish, so I always had my shamrocks with me. 3-leaf shamrock instead of a 4-leaf clover, and the man who never had much of a look at the Irish is my colleague Derek Bell. Derek, you won everything in sports car racing, but never managed to win here. Do you want the glasses?
If I had to look like you, I'm glad I didn't win it, man.
but luck plays a big role, Derek, doesn't it, here to try and win this?
Of all the races in the world, this one takes it all, because it's so physical for the drivers, so physical for the cars, so physical for the whole teams and the heat as well. We never get this anywhere like this.
You want to try them?
No, I don't. Oh, all right. John Watson, eat your heart out.
Well, obviously we're having a bit of fun here, but out on the track, it is brutally hot right now, and that is one of the major concerns. We've seen a lot of drivers getting out of the car, struggling immensely with heat, particularly in the front engine cars. Those have been problematic as well, but that luck factor has come into play. We saw the number 2 Audi, which had been leading, hit that one little snag that the factories had shown no sign of previously, and that has allowed the number 1 car not only into a big lead, but Stefan Johansson's Golf machine, one of the privateers, is in the mix as well. Now, let's go down to Dave Burns, who's joining us now in pit lanes with more on that heat situation. Dave?
Thanks, Greg. And of course, on the track, it's hot. Inside the cars, it's hot, especially if you've got a closed cockpit car like the Corvettes. Kelly Collins drives number 4, and the temperatures inside his cockpit were reported to be around 136 degrees. That's really hot, Kelly. I understand your body temperature got way up there, too.
Yeah, my temperature and Johnny O'Connell's were 102. Frank Freon's was 103.6. It's really hot inside the car. I mean, when the clouds go away and the direct sunlight comes out, it just changes everything.
So are you going to save double stinting for later on tonight, or have you been able to do that as well?
Probably. We need to take care of ourselves right now for heat exhaustion, because if I cook ourselves now, then there won't be anything left for anything tonight. If anything, we don't lose any time in this series by doing driver changes because of the way the fueling works. So we're better off just single stinting and keeping ourselves fresh anyway, so you just kind of get into this repetitive motion.
Now, to take care of these drivers, of course, they employ a group called TrackMed, and they make sure they get fluids into them right after they come out. Then they monitor them for about 15 minutes to see if their temperature of their bodies comes down to an acceptable level. If not, that's when they start going to IV fluids to try to keep them race ready all during the 12 hours.
Dave, you're absolutely right. Hydration, so absolutely key here. That it is something they monitor, of course, very, very closely. Now we have another new member joining us down in pit lane. Of course, he spent a little time up here in the booth. A hard-working guy, Alan DeCadney. Welcome to the pits, my friend.
Yes, it's hot and sticky in the pits, not unlike it was in the booth when I left. But the Henri Pescarolo managed Courage C60 came into the pits, just a routine stop. Henri told me that they had an alternator problem. That's what it was all about earlier, set them back down the field. But the drivers have been complaining of understeer. Look what they took off, the front tires. This is the pickup they've had on this track. This black gunk is loads of little slimy bits of rubber from everybody else's tires they've been picking up. They pulled that out the back of the car and they threw it over towards the pits. It actually hit me instead, so that's why I'm showing you guys. This is the kind of stuff that in one pit run they get on those cars. Not very nice, eh?
Derek Bell, I want to just continue the thought about the heat. I remember, God rest his soul, Bob Wallach said, he told the Porsche engineers so many times, if you would put air conditioning in this car, we as drivers could physically exert ourselves for the full length of a race, as opposed to conditioning ourselves to knowing this is going to be very hot, I better be careful. Derek, I'm sure you've run across that problem, as I have many times, where heat does affect you.
Well, I was only talking about it just this morning to somebody about this, and I said, you know, if we had actually air pumped onto our head and into our helmet, not this water job, if somebody would pump air, which I believe the Corvette, strange enough, as we see one sitting here, Justin was telling my son who drove them last year that they used to have air pumped into the helmet. A great idea, but if we had air-conditioned air, as you say, Derek, it would make such a difference to us. But they don't seem to think of that until afterwards. They make these million-dollar cars and say, what about the driver's comfort? Don't worry about it.
Remember Justin Bell, your son at Le Mans last year, virtually collapsed when he jumped out of this car here, the Corvette.
And now, of course, this Corvette sitting second in class. Dave Burns, you're there. How's that stop going?
Routine so far, Greg. Fuel went in with no problem. They are, looks like they're inserting, blowing, getting some air, or are they shooting CO2 in? I couldn't really tell. Inside the front cowling of the car. Other than that, Johnny O'Connell is going to stay in. In fact, they are. Remember, they had earlier problems with the starter, and they had to freeze it up. And then now they're going in. Dave Albright is going in with a rod to whack the solenoid. They cooled it down with liquid CO2 first. Now he's going to hammer on it and try to get the starter motor to engage. They did that earlier. It worked. Now Bill DeLong jumps in, the car chief, to try to effect the same changes. And again, this is a problem that if they cool the solenoid down, they can usually get it to react. And that's what they're trying to do right now as O'Connell continues to wait. And now the CO2 valve is actually out of control. They're going to shoot it one more time.
Dave, just to follow up, people might wonder, well, why would they not just leave the engine running? The rules of Le Mans states that every time you pit in the car, you must turn the engine off. That is a rule. They have no option. And I'll tell you what, after less than halfway through this race, they are in major league trouble if they can't fire the thing up easier than that.
Well, this gets back to what we talked about right at the top of the show, the preparation, the execution. But one thing Sebring throws at you is a lot of unknowns just because of nothing else here, the heat certainly, but the pounding.
Well, it's the heat. It's the heat that comes into the car, and then you get a heat soak when it stops. And this is exactly what's happening to these guys sitting in here now, and they have a major problem with it.
Still trying, and Johnny shaking his head. This has got to be immensely frustrating. Let's get back to something that Alan DeCadney was talking about while we're watching how this stop turns out. Holding that big ball of rubber, you were just mentioning that that could be problematic, not just on the tires.
Well, inevitably, it's usually the old story, having raced here 20 times, more like my friend here. But, you know, I remember coming down to the hairpin one day in the Spice about 6 years ago, put my foot on the brake pedal, and it stayed on the floor. And I couldn't get the brake pedal down, and I just squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. When I got around the corner, I couldn't get the brake pedal back, and I came in the pits. Mechanics dived over, and there was this ball of rubber stuck behind the brake pedal.
Just amazing. There is the champion Audi in the pits. It looks like Ralph Kellners is going to be on board. Let's go back down to Alan DeCadney.
Yes, it looks like a routine stop, actually. They're putting the fuel in. Of course, everybody's waiting to get to work on the rest of the car. They're all poised. Very good machinery here that Champion have got, of course. I'm just waiting basically to see what's happening, but nothing very special. I think it's just a routine stop. They're going to change tires, though. Dave, I think you've got something for us, too.
Brian Wade has jumped underneath the car now to put on the new starter motor. And as he flails away under there, they're going to pick the old one up. Now, most of the time, these guys have all the tools and the parts sitting in a little tray ready to go in case this happens. Every nut, every bolt, and every wrench, every screwdriver, everything is needed to get that thing on and off. So they practice these changes. They go through the choreography when they are in the shop. And so hopefully this won't take long for Brian to go ahead and change. At the same time, looks like they're going to change brake rotors and make a pad change as well, as long as they've got this time.
Well, that makes sense, obviously. If you have a long stop, take care of any business you can.
Could we get our cameraman to actually help them? I've never seen a cameraman closer underneath the car, almost up in the gearbox, as we're bringing you here live on Speed Vision. I mean, you are right in the middle of the action here.
And there's the number 26, which has gone by and now has picked up second in the GTS division. That is Terry Borchler on board the beautiful Seline S7R, and they have now picked up second spot. And, you know, we talk about the heat for the drivers, but underneath that Corvette, with those mechanics working down there in this heat and humidity, the heat radiating off that thing has got to be baking them while they're working on that as well. So it is simply tough duty for everybody involved here at Sebring throughout these 12 hours. And we're very happy to be a part of it and to bring them to you live in their entirety on Speed Vision. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sebring, everybody. We're taking a look here down the Ullman Straight out of turn 16, and you can see the heat waves radiating off of the pavement here. And there is the number 38 champion Audi, Ralph Kellners, behind the wheel. Now Dorsey Schrader just stepped out from behind the wheel of that car. He's standing by with Alan.
Dorsey, you're a happy man for a change. You weren't so happy last year, but you obviously love this car.
Yeah, I tell you what, Alan, this car is so much fun to drive. It's a great day for racing. I mean, I'm out there just blasting around. Big crowd here, everybody's waving. I'm having a good old time. Tires are, you know, racetrack's really slippery right now, so we're slipping and sliding. At the end of the double stint that I just did, the tires are pretty used up, so I don't know how the guys are doing on the mediums. I guess we need to learn a little bit more about this chassis.
But it's an amazing car straight out the box. By the time you get some R&D into it, you'll really be flying.
Yeah, I think we will too. I mean, we worked all weekend with hard tires, and we set it up to be pretty neutral with hards. When we go with the softs, it's a bit pushy, so maybe we should have set it up with the softs like those guys did. They're a little bit quicker than we are, but it's a long way to go.
Well, the only way to do it is to do it and learn. So that's obviously what you're doing.
I'm having a good time. I tell you what, this thing is a riot.
Great. Thank you very much, Dorsey.
You can just tell in Dorsey's voice how much he enjoys this car. But just to give you an idea how outstanding this racing car is, Stefan Johansson's car was delivered here to Sebring. He had never even sat in it. Last Monday in a test session, he went out, And at the end of the day, Johansson was fastest of every single car that ran, including the factory cars. That is the type of confidence, Derek Bell, that this car seemed to give the driver almost immediately.
Yeah, I spoke to Stefan as well, and he just said it was the greatest car he's ever driven. He said it's so easy to drive. And of course, if you've got an easy car to drive and does what you want, look at that, 33 degrees.
What's that in real temperature?
That's about
that's in the 90s. That's well up into the 90s down in there.
Yeah.
You know, one of the reasons I suspect that Dorsey's smiling is there are some telemetry sensors in the cars. The Corvette right now, they're showing cockpit temperatures in excess of 140 degrees. The Audis are at 113. So that's awful pleasant compared to what's going on inside those Vettes. As of course Justin found out. You were talking, Derek, about the Audis and showing up and being fast immediately with no time. It was even more pronounced at Texas when the champion car showed up. They hadn't turned a wheel till the Friday when they opened up the track, and by the time the race came around on Sunday, they gave the factories a real run, especially they figured out with fuel. I mean, it's amazing.
And I think for Dorsey, as we watch Chris Neifel here inside the Corvette, I think they've got their starter motor problems, but let's go to Dave Burns. Dave?
Well, Johnny O'Connell, of course, hopped out of that hot Corvette. We've been talking about the temperatures, Johnny. How was that last stint for you, temperature-wise? For you, for your body?
You know, really not that bad in the car. I was drinking a lot more water, so, you know, the car was good. We can run a pretty consistent pace. I could have sworn I had a puncture. They say we don't. And I know Ron and Chris have had the same problem, so I don't know that we got a tire issue that we've got to address here or not. But, you know, we're having a problem with the starter anyway. So we're in. We're going to take advantage of the time that we're here, fix that, fix some brakes, and get back after it.
It looked like you were able to make the starter work, and you were able to make it work, and this time it just wouldn't give it all, would it?
No, you know, a lot of times you leave it in gear, you rock the car back and forth, and, you know, the gods smile on you, and it starts, but this time it wasn't. And, you know, it was something we're going to have to deal with every hour. So, you know what, it makes sense. Take the time, fix it. I mean, but right now, you know, we're going to have a little bit of luck with the Seline and the 4 car, but, you know, this is a whole season thing we're looking at. We're going to make sure we keep this thing running and come away with some points.
Well, they'll try to maintain their position in class right now. They've got about 6 laps on the next car, so that gives them about 12 or so minutes before they've really got to think seriously about losing position.
There's something wrong with the script here when a red-headed Irishman called Johnny O'Connell on St. Patrick's Day doesn't have a little bit of rub of the shamrock going his way.
Well, maybe he needs your glasses. Maybe that's what it is. Well, we're going to step away here as well. We'll be right back as, again, a lot of racing yet to go here at Sebring. Almost 8 hours left. Welcome back to Sebring. The leader in GTS is down in the pits, Dave Burns.
And Kelly Collins is in the car. Hopping out of the car was Andy Pilgrim. Pretty routine stop. And the 3 is going to leave at the same time now, having effected the repairs already on that starter motor. So both Corvettes go out at the same time as well. The Dyson Riley and Scott Mark III. Elliott Forbes Robinson got out of that car, and Butch Leitzinger hopped in. So a lot of activity all at one time right down here.
All right, 3 cars come out. And do you see how fast that Audi went by on the track? I mean, that's what you're blending into out there. And there's the number 26. And that car now has joined the lead lap. It is on the lead lap. It's quite a bit back, of course, because it's chasing the number 4 machine. But it is now on the lead lap at this point. Terry Portuler is behind the wheel. So we have a race afoot here in GTS. And I was going to comment about Chris Neifel now behind the wheel of the 3 car, down a bit. But they've got to go after it. This is, again, Chris's last race. He's announced he's done with behind the wheel, taking over as the chief steward of the Championship Auto Racing Team's IndyCar fraternity. And that's going to be very interesting. Indeed. Look at that. Elliott Forbes Robinson wedging down underneath Neifel.
And then he waves. Thank you. Nice courtesy.
Well, you might need to do it again, and the guy might block you next time. Yes. So you're always polite if you can.
That's Andy Pilgrim chatting with Kelly Collins now, giving him some insight and input.
And he moved over. Look, one Corvette moves over, lets the other one past. But this is the man they need to keep their eyes firmly on. The Seline S7
very much a development program here, but this really, Derek, has put the cat among the pigeons in this class, because this really is a racing car made into a road car, whereas the Corvette is definitely a road car they're trying to make to a racing car.
Absolutely. I was talking to Oliver Gavin just now, actually, who'd just done his stint, and he said the car is quite remarkable. I said, the speed, I can't believe it. He said the speed of the car in the straight. He said the Audis only just go overtake. They don't overtake that fast at all, he said.
Let's go down to the pits right now. Dave is standing by with Andy Pilgrim.
Andy, I didn't quite catch that. What did you say to Kelly?
Basically, I told him where to save the tires. There are certain places on the track where when you got new tires, you can use the car. I didn't, and those tires stayed with me to the end of the stint. So I was telling him which corners, just to be easy with it. Drive it like your tires are worn out right from the beginning. And
what corner in particular do you want to be easy with?
3, 4, 5, and 11.
Everywhere, back and forth, back and forth.
Well, it's just really where you've got big turning and big torque, so we don't want to abuse them.
Right. Thanks, Andy. Good stuff.
Well, David, one of the things that Vette's been struggling with is getting long stints out of the tires. There's your GT leader, the number 42 Schnitzer V8 BMW down in the pits, and obviously driver change. That'll be J.J. Leto getting back on board that machine.
And this has not been a plain, clear sailing ride for these boys here. Bit of a test session. We've spoken a lot all through the show here about this car, the V8 engine, prepared by BMW Motorsport in Munich, then given to Schnitzer, will later be given to the PTG team here. But let's get an update from Dave. Dave?
Mueller's in the car now. I spoke to, or I'm sorry, Leto just hopped into the car, as you guys said. I spoke to JJ just a few minutes ago. You might have seen we showed his tootsies, as they say, on the air, and I told him his feet were now international superstars. He said, I knew I should have had the manicure. But that's not going to keep him from going slow. Everything looks very routine now. He's off the jacks already, and we'll run back and see if we can find York Mueller and get a word from him as well. He's just dropped his helmet off, and we'll go and do that right now. York is in the background, and we'll shoot right over and find him. York, can you tell us exactly what it's, well, right now, how is the car working?
Yeah, I mean, for that we've got the car so shortly, you know, the guys did a fantastic job. They worked till 5 o'clock last night. And although we had a lot of problems during the weekend with little things like alternator and all that shit, we still found a quite good balance, you know, which we haven't had at the beginning. And yeah, car's quite good to drive, and no warnings, everything runs like it should be.
Not bad for an admitted test session, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're a little bit worse on fuel, as I see, of course. But you know, the race is still long, and something can happen to that as well.
Mueller sounds very confident about their chances, guys.
Well, it's interesting because all the information about this team that they've been releasing is this is a test session preparing for Le Mans, just trying to get this brand new car in place. They've been running awfully fast, and it almost seems like that is in fact a good way to approach it. Just if you don't expect to win, if you don't plan on winning, you're not even sure if you can last, go hard, find out if there are flaws, where they are, what'll break, get it fixed, and if you end up having a run at the win, better for it.
Now, let me just tell you a little bit about this car. We know it's got a V8 engine. It's actually causing a little bit of consternation with the Porsche camp, because they are of the opinion that this BMW car here actually contravenes the spirit of the rules. Not the rules. They are allowed to put this engine in here, but they believe the spirit of the rule, Derek, is being stretched a little bit because they never made a road car, unlike Porsche, who have made 1800 GT3s. So there's a little bit of inter-camp rivalry raising their head because of this V8 M3 right here.
Well, quite naturally there would be, and it is very, very disappointing, but this stuff happens in motor racing. Everybody pushes the edge of the envelope, and if Porsche could, remember the Dower car at Le Mans.
Good point.
That is a good point indeed. And after all, they have filed the paperwork with the ACO to build some street models of this car, thus meeting the rule itself. Interesting. We'll be back. Welcome back to Sebring. You ride on board with our race leader here, the #1 Infineon Audi R8. and it is currently Laurentiello behind the wheel of that machine, and they just had a stop, totally routine. Fuel, no tires, no driver change, and that car just continues to circulate just like clockwork. Just amazing to watch the progress that this car is able to make. One little glitch from the team car number 2. And there is that machine, and of course right in front of that car is the number 38 champion Audi. Ralph Kellner's now behind the wheel, sitting in the 4th spot overall and in class, and feeling a little bit of heat right now from Emanuele Pirro. And Dorsey Schrader just got out of that car, number 38, just a little bit ago. Of course, visit with him in pit lane. Now he's joined us up here in the booth. You've had a moment to refresh a little bit and collect your thoughts. You sound just elated to be a part of this program.
It's a great program, that's for sure. And the car is just so much fun to drive. You can't believe it. We're learning as we go, and what we learned right now is we definitely don't have the chassis as good as these other boys do. We are running, we were running the hard tires. Andy didn't like them to the extent that they've gone now to the softer ones. I just ran a double stint on the softer ones, and the car understeers horribly on when the new tires are on. But by the end of the set, the rear tires went off. I had a pretty well balanced car, and we got pretty racy there for a while.
Dorsey, you look hot and sweaty. I mean, your sweatshirt is just completely soaked, as are your overalls. How hot is it in the car, and is that the worst time when you're actually in physically driving?
It's not too bad in the car. These cars are pretty sealed off as far as not getting a lot of air in there. What is hot is the side panel where your left leg is, and your shoulder and your elbow. That gets pretty hot over there. And on top of that, you do that double stint to the driver change. What really gets you hot is the driver change. You get out of the car, you're hanging upside down trying to get the belts done, and you heat sink it. Just hits you all at once. But when you're out there running, it's not so bad.
Right. Do you have a drink on board this car?
No, we don't. Actually, we're struggling along. We've done several things. We lost the radio. We have no radio, so we have to communicate by, if you see me sticking my hand up, I'm telling them I'm coming in one lap. We're doing everything manually from a pit board. We lost the mirror. I saw that the lead Audi's lost its right mirror. Our right mirror is gone as well.
You know, that is a point that I saw myself and Derek Bell discussed it earlier on. I've driven racing cars. When you lose a mirror, you almost feel scared sometimes because you're not sure now on the complete side of the car whether you can pull over. I mean, is it difficult, Dorsey, in that car without the rear view mirror?
Well, it is. When I was running there at the end of the stint, the car wasn't as quick, and I could see my pit board, and I could also see the lead car's pit board, and I knew he was catching me up at about 2 seconds a lap. I didn't want to block him or hinder his progress, and it's hard because you don't know if he's coming which side, especially if you're in traffic, and that's where he caught me up in traffic when I was in some other people. And then you just go, oh, God, I don't want to wreck anybody. It's frustrating. Both these cars, look, their right mirror completely gone. Our guys are going to actually get a piece of glass from something and try to super glue it in at the next stop because it's bad.
Does your car have the electronically actuated mirror like the factory car?
Yep. Both mirrors, you can adjust them. Of course, if there's no glass there, it makes no difference which way.
Right.
The other thing, too, I think for people back at home is not to forget that we have a helmet on our heads and your peripheral vision is absolutely impossible.
And there's a good example here. Peripheral vision, you can see to about halfway back the car, but you can't see who's beside you. And your mirror inevitably tells you who's coming up, so as if you don't see him, at least you know he's in the vicinity. And mirrors don't always give you a perfect picture. Very often it's distorted, but when you get a color scheme that fills the mirror, you pretty much know who it is, and you just give them a little bit of a wider berth. But Dorsey, as we watch on board with our leader here, we're probably on board the most sophisticated sports car that was ever built. David Brabham back in.
One that's rather close, though, according to a lot of theory here, is this car. It's a very high-tech trick piece. That's David Brabham, obviously. That's the Sebring 50th anniversary race. Of course, this is the 49th running of the race because they did during the fuel crisis. Skippy year. A lot of people showed up, partied, though. They've only been able to complete at this point 61 laps, so this is well and truly turned into a test session for this team.
You see his head restraint off to the right there. And you see the Audi has that center console. When you're in there, that view that we got for the camera is a better view than we actually get. It's like sitting in a single-seat race car. You really can't see the outsides of the thing at all.
Right.
Well, we're on board the number 23. That is the GT Porsche, the McKenna Porsche, leading right now in the GT division. Sascha Maassen, very talented young German pilot behind the wheel. There's your top 10. Those Audi flags pretty indicative of the performance Audi has been putting on today, as they are truly dominating this event right now. There are 4 Audis here, and they are in the top 4. And of course, in Porsche, it's Porsche and GT, and they're just as proud of things, of course. That is their idea, of course. Now, you know what? There's been a lot of great races here, 49 of them for the Sebring 12 hours. And our own resident historian, Sam Posey, took a look at 1993. It had a special guy in it.
1993. At the start, it was the number 99 Toyota of Juan Fangio II, leading teammate P.J. Jones. Meanwhile, at the GTS division, Dorsey Schrader was looking for a way to get around teammate Scott Pruitt. Get around he did, right in front of Tommy Kendall. Dorsey's co-drivers were Paul Gentilossi and Speed Vision's Calvin Fish, and they eventually finished 3rd in class. This was also the year for rain, and lots of it. Moretti and Chip Robinson were just a couple of those who were caught out. Things eventually got so bad that, for the first time in Sebring history, a race had to be red flagged for rain. With an average speed of less than 72 miles an hour, Toyota took their 2nd win in a row, and it was the 2nd win in a row for drivers Fangio and Andy Wallace. Toyota won all but one race that year on the IMSA schedule, and Fangio bested his teammate Jones for the driver's title.
I'd say a fair bet's changed for you since 1993.
Well, I tell you what, one thing did change. Tommy Kendall and I wrecked again. I'll tell you, when he hit me in the door there, and it hit the exhaust pipe where it comes out of the door, and it turned it around and put it back in the car with me. And it was a pretty miserable day because of that. Wish we wouldn't have done that. But you're right, a lot has changed since then. Those cars look old now, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Tommy Kendall. A lot of people, of course, expected to see Kendall here in the Seline, but the factory-run Seline program is on hold right now. Look at the flashing of the lights here, trying to move over the champion car. But the factory Seline program is put on hold temporarily because of the high demand for the customer car. So, like they did in Homestead, their factory drivers are being loaned out to the customer teams. Gavin, who's a factory driver, is here in the only Seline that's here. Ron Johnson was loaned out from the factory to the car at Homestead. But Kendall, I believe, is going to be back. Is Le Mans? He hopes to be back.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of funny at the beginning of this race. Dr. Ulrich, who runs the Audi, got all of us drivers together, and he said there was no fair attacking on the first lap. Nobody can attack anybody on the first lap. And if we want to pass, then we need to courteously flash the light. So you can see that my teammate Kellers is not moving over.
But he considers you as the Audi group of drivers, even though you're a private team.
Yeah, he came to us and said, look, boys, you know, on the open lap, let's keep it a little clean. You know, let's not do any attacking until things settle down. Well, it's a good advice, really.
Good look right there at the Seline that you were talking about, Derek Daly, and that car running very well at this stage. Again, currently a 2nd same lap performance as the leading Corvette in GTS. Now, the Panos has been in and out of the pits once again. Dave Burns, it's been a real struggle for them today. Let's hold up on that first, because we have the number 2 Audi has made an appearance down in pit lane, and this looks they're refueling, and looks like they were just checking tire temps on those cars. I thought for a minute, can they get in there and actually touch the tires, or they just get in there with a heat sensor?
Well, they're doing that, and also checking with the infrared the rotor temps.
That's what it would be then.
Is it true that you cannot run this car yourselves? You have to have an Audi engineer just to fire the engine up?
Yeah, they don't want us starting it, or we can't do any testing whatsoever without one of the engineers being present.
So would they fly somebody from Germany over specifically for you if you want to go test and run this car?
Yeah, and it was one of the problems we had right before running at Texas for the first time, is we had a day out there that we might have maybe tested, but we couldn't get an engineer.
Interesting.
Well, that's a scenario here. I hear people talking to you guys with these customer Audis about once you test and get some more RD, you're set to go. It sounds like that is a rather difficult deal to do.
It is. And, you know, I was down in the pits, and Terry Boots was down there, and we were explaining to him what was wrong with the car, and that we had set this car up all weekend long on the hot weather compound tire. And he said, well, we've done it all wrong. He says, you always set it up on the softest tire, and then if it won't work, you go to the hardest tire. You just start at the hardest tire. And that's what we're seeing right now, is that we're set up for a hard tire.
and when we go to the softer tire, which everybody else is running, the chassis is misbalanced.
Of course, Terry Boutsen is here. He will mastermind Dorsey's attack on the Le Mans 24-hour race this year. He's actually still recovering, believe it or not, from the serious back injuries from that huge crash at Le Mans in the Toyota. Heavily broke several vertebrae in his back, had a lot of surgeries, has screws and pins and all sorts of things to put his back together. So he is still in pain. And remember, that was what caused him to retire from motor racing. As you look at Stefan Johansson here in the Gulf-backed Audi, the privateer team here now with Stefan at the helm has split the factory cars.
Up into second, Christensen has dropped to third with Kellner's fourth. Things are getting a little bit interesting here. And by the way, we just received an email from somebody who should know. Said there are actually more than 2 Seline S7R chassis. Says I know of 5 currently built with more on the way, as well as 5 S7 streetcar chassis. The guy who sent it is Ron Johnson. So we'll go with Ron on this one, and we'll go away for just a minute and be right back. There are your 4 class leaders. Welcome back to Sebring. There is the number 2 Infineon Audi R8, the Emanuele Pirro behind the wheel. Again, it has slipped to third with Stefan Johansson's machine, the Golf machine, moving up into second. That car was recently in the pits. Let's go down to Alan DeCatney.
Yes, what I noticed when the number 2 car came in, it was a very crisp pit stop. No driver change. Pirro stayed in, of course. They filled it up with fuel. Quite a bit of fuel leaked out, by the way. I don't think that's a problem. But what I noticed is that when he started the car, it was in gear, and it kind of shot off as if they were having maybe a clutch problem before. We watched them stall it a couple of times. I wonder if that has any significance, whether there might be a little bit of a clutch problem here. That's all I'm thinking.
All right, thanks very much, Alan. We continue to watch the car. It certainly looks to be performing awfully well on track right now. We want to take you back and show you a little bit of what's happened and developed in the GT category. There's been some stellar moments and some great racing there, but some other types of moments as well. We want to take you back and show you a look at as we watch the number 2 Audi continue to circulate. Here we go. This is some of the drama that's occurred, and it has been there. That's Bill Overland, the number 10 PTG BMW, who's having a pretty strong race. An immense amount of smoke. Something let go inside the engine and the radiator area, and he waited out there a long time. Darren Law, a little bit later on, the number 98 Kelly Moss Racing Porsche. Terminal problems as well. That car parked and is done. This was the pass for the lead. The number 23 McKenna Porsche looked pretty strong, but that new V8 Schnitzer BMW got a beautiful drive down inside, made the pass, and picked up the lead at that point and drove on. Now there's the number 52 Porsche of Andrew Bognar, and you can see 2 flat tires, the car crabbing. Here's why. Ran wide, clipped the wall at the exit of Sunset Bend, spun him around, and bang, right there, broke the left rear suspension on that car, and made for a very long day for them and the crew. We are back on board now with the Alex Job Racing McKenna entry. That is the number 23 car leading in the GT division. We also want to welcome Nicholas Johnson, who, of course, driver of one of the PTG BMWs. And first of all, what was the final determination? Do you know what happened with the number 10 machine?
Obviously, a piston broke for us, and we don't really know exactly why. We have had some other engine problems here this week, and we don't know if it's like a different fuel or something is different from, you know, from the past. So we have had some problems with the engines all week.
But now that was your car, right?
That's correct.
But you're
10 car.
But you're still dressed. Does that mean you may go into another car?
No, I'm just out there kind of try to support my other teammates, Boris and Hans, in the other car. Just try hanging out, you know, and try to help out there.
And you look good.
Well, thank you.
let me just tell you, he's got to keep those overalls on and not chuck him out of the pits. So he's got to keep dressed.
That's a fire deal. That's absolutely true. I was going to ask, I mean, you still have the number 6 car, Boris and Hans, running in the top 4 in the class. And Boris, we talked to a little bit earlier, and Boris indicated that you guys are sticking to a pretty strict regimen here because you think that there's still hope at the end of this one that the other guys might be running themselves out of it.
As I said, we have had, you know, some problems with the engine, so we actually put the rev limiter down to 8,000 this morning. So we actually shift about 400 revs lower than we done all week before to like try to make the engines last. Hopefully their engine lasts. Our didn't, so.
There's your sister car here. Nicholas, there's been a lot of talk about the new V8 engined car. Can you tell us something? We know it's a little bit faster, a little bit better, but is there anything significant about the car that we haven't discussed yet? I mean, is it the future for BMW with GT racing?
I definitely think so. I mean, this car is completely different from the car you see on the screen there now. It's a completely different developed car and engine, drivetrain, everything is completely new. So, I mean, I will be very impressed if they can finish the race here. I think we have some, you know, the hopes are to finish, but I think the drivetrain and gearbox is probably, you know, the most concern. I don't think the engine is that big of a concern. I think that will run.
Okay, good.
How about chassis and the bodywork? It almost looks like the number 42 car is a little bit different look to it. Is it a more aggressive body style?
They have stiffened the chassis up and they also have a little bit different aerodynamics on the car. But otherwise from that, they're basically built on the same chassis as the car you see on TV right now.
We saw earlier in the show, we saw J.J. Leto when he got out of the number 42 machine, incredibly hot. He had both feet in an ice bucket. He had ice on his hands. Is that a function of the V8 or is that, excuse me, there's the number 4, and they have got a big sheet of plastic of some sort, and that is completely obscuring at least the left front wheel brake duct, if not a part of the engine cooling, and that's a major concern, I would think.
Well, if that stretched over the radiator, that would be a reason, Derek Bell, for a quick pit stop, because that would boil that car within a lap.
Absolutely, and of course the brakes wouldn't be working terribly well on the left front, would they?
No, I would think not. Kelly Collins on board. Look at him. He's sitting there shaking his head. Just cannot believe this has been a development here. And looks like he's going to be able to head right back out. But that has to be very front if it starts.
If he can start this thing, exactly.
Their car's been starting all right, though, hasn't it? So they shouldn't have a problem. And you know, coming in like that, they must have solved the problem. They had a lot of experience with it last year. I think they just have a mechanical problem with the other car.
Derek, I'm surprised he keeps his helmet visor closed. I would have thought he wants some nice fresh air, or else the air inside the cockpit.
I mentioned that air that he had off the cooler.
Yes,
okay. They have a cooling system which pumps cool air in, so if you keep it down, it keeps the air circulating.
Okay, he opens it up, then of course the hot air from the cockpit gets in.
Yeah.
Another thing as well is that we have a problem too. Actually, the guys in the pit can't hear the radio when we run with the visor open out on the track because so much engine noise inside these cars.
Very good point. Yeah, very, very good point.
And remember, gentlemen, that the number 4 car with Kelly Collins behind the wheel didn't have that big a lead on the Seline. That stop, which certainly came out of sequence, not planned, obviously, it's going to let that Seline close up, I would think, quite a bit more. So this GTS battle is seriously starting to develop. As we're on board with that car, Nicholas, I was going to get back to you about J.J. Leto and the heat getting out of the car. Is that a function of the V8? Does that produce more heat than the 6s in your cars, or is it just?
I think it produced a little bit more heat because you obviously have 2 more, cylinders and 2 more exhaust pipes, but also they're still running with the stock doors and everything, and so they don't have any circulation in the car so far because the car, just showed up here on Wednesday morning. They flew in right from Germany. Had basically just done a shakedown on the car and just ran here for 20 laps before qualifying. So it's definitely more to do as far as get some circulation and cooling in the car in the future.
Temperature's okay in your guys in the PTG cars?
It's okay. It's pretty hot, but you can stand it. It's not that big of a deal.
Look there now at the number 1 machine. Again, Laurentiello, we believe, behind the wheel. He is leading right now, but Stefan Johansson sits second. Kellner's now has moved up to 3rd with that stop by Christensen. So that is a great deal. We want to say a thank you to Nicholas Johnson for stopping up and visiting with us. We wish you were behind the wheel driving as the rest of the afternoon unfolded, but go down and support those drivers in number 6 car.
I will. Thanks a lot.
All right. So right there are your lead 2 separated by 1 lap and that much on the track. And there's the glorious Chateau Elan Hotel. Welcome back to Sebring, and you are looking at the battle for the lead in GTS. It is just that close, well under a second here at the Superflow 12 Hours of Sebring. That last stop to remove the plastic wrapped around the radiator and brake ducts on the number 4 Corvette of Kelly Collins has allowed Terry Borchler in that beautiful Seline to close right up. And this is, in fact, a battle for position. And, you know, not that long ago, you wouldn't have thought so. We saw the bodywork falling off the back of the Seline, and they were well off the pace. But things have conspired and transpired, and they're there.
And so often now in endurance racing, where in years past you just had a race for the first couple of hours, cruise, and then race the last few, you have to go fairly hard all the time. And here we are, 6 hours into the 12 hours of Sebring, and the GTS boys are within a second of each other.
And, boy, I'll tell you what, this may be just what Borchler needed.
Now they're within 10 feet of each other. We're on board the Corvette right now. That's our onboard camera from the back, looking back at that Seline.
Yeah, you just saw Kellner's dive bomb underneath the Vette, and that I thought was going to allow Borchler maybe a little bit more of a run. Didn't quite happen. But if they're saying, look at this, here he goes. He looks anyway. Not quite enough. And they've been saying that this Seline in a straight line in particular is an absolute rocket. And it showed right there, and it looks to be pretty decent under braking as well.
Yeah. Well, it's running a tremendous amount of downforce, far more downforce than the Corvettes, and they're going to have to run a lot less when they go to Le Mans. And this is something they've got to work on. But remember, as you said, it's very early days for this car.
That is the program the Seline boys are really concentrating on. Le Mans is such a big event. It is such a prestige event. They want to go there with as much test mileage, and really mileage that you get, or knowledge you get in racing, is so much more valuable than testing away by yourselves, because this is the true conditions you will face when you go across the waters to Le Mans. That's where Seline wants to run best of all.
That's a very good point, Derek Bell, about we watched him close up so dramatically under braking. More downforce means you can get on the brakes later. That makes braking far more effective. Now watch this run here.
Yeah, here's your long straight now. 170 miles an hour plus in these GT cars. I don't know, Derek. He doesn't have the legs up and down that straight, does he?
But I was talking to Oliver Gavin. He said the car has so much speed as well, all round. I mean, was it 7 liters or something?
Yeah.
I mean, it's massive. I mean, it's totally outclassing the Corvettes. It's sad to say all the work they put into it, and they built this massive car with, obviously the latest technology. I'm still unhappy about the fact there don't seem to be many models of them made, where there seem a lot of Corvettes on the streets these days, but that's
okay,
the way
here's the effort.
is.
Here it is.
Looks down the inside. Borchler does. They are door to door. Couldn't quite get it done. And now here comes your overall race leader in the mix. Goes by Borchler, rips by Collins as well.
Yikes.
That was a dodgy move. I think that was a pretty brave move. I don't know if he knew they were dicing for the lead. That's what the guy in the Audi wouldn't have known that. He just thought it was just two guys generally together.
And that's the risk you take here in these long distance races. Do you trust the man you're passing and the man that's trying to pass you? And here's the hairpin.
Look how close he is this time. And we got so close. Here he goes. He's alongside. Got him.
Force is the issue in the brake zone. Once you get alongside, the Corvette has to give up the fight. No point in continuing the fight. Let him go and then race him somewhere else on the racetrack.
You know what? The reports are to throw even more salt in Corvette's wounds. Aside from all the other good stuff that's being said about the Seline, they're saying it's far easier on tires. They're getting a lot more life out of those tires. And so that may be part of the Vette struggles right here. Right now, let's go down to the pits quickly. Dave is with Steve Seline. Dave?
I sure am, Greg. Steve, your S7R just passed the Corvette. You're the GTS leader. How does that feel?
Well, that's great. It's been a very exciting race. We had some problems at the beginning with our rear bodywork coming apart. The track's so bumpy. When the latches came undone, and then it kind of tweaked the bodywork. So we spent several laps fixing that. But then once we got back on track, the car is missed to be. And it's pretty exciting, obviously, after 5 hours of racing the Corvettes here, that we really nose to tail on the track.
Yeah, I mean, and this time you got to actually hunt them down with Terry Borchler. You got to hunt them down this time, Steve.
Yeah, we made up a 2.5 lap deficit, so obviously the car's very fast. The drivers are doing a good job. Conrad, actually here he comes now, so that's pretty good. Unfortunately, it's a long ways to go yet.
Steve, if the selection committee is good to you, how many Selines do we expect to see at Le Mans?
Well, we have sent in 4 entries at the Seline SR, 2 for
from our factory effort and 2 privateers. Ray Malik over in England and Conrad here running this weekend entered one for himself as well.
And they could be a real factor at Le Mans this year as well in the GTS class, guys.
One would certainly think so, and keep in mind, Derek Bell, I mean, this car was built to do exactly what it's doing and doing very well out there, and this isn't a huge surprise.
No, but I still go back to the fact that the spirit of this rules, I thought, was that it was meant to be like from a production-based car, and I'm not at all sure that I've seen too many of these on the street, but I've seen a heck of a lot of Corvettes over my time. If that's the way it's going to go, then there's going to be a lot more people coming in with these special models.
You bring up an interesting point, and I discussed it with Steve Seline. This car that you watch here, this Seline SR7, the ACO in France really would like the GTS class to go this way with cars like this. So they have given Seline a vote of confidence that absolutely this is the style of GTS car that they want to be racing.
But how would you feel if you were Corvette and spent millions, as you have the last 2 or 3 years, and Viper did, preparing the cars to go out and win, and then somebody's allowed to come in because of the whims of the people at the ACO to change the rules?
Well, on the other hand,
well, I'm not political about it, but I mean, I agree. I think the Seline is a fantastic idea, don't get me wrong. But when you're the people in Corvette that have put so much effort and money into it, and then suddenly hear about this, it's not that what I call the sport.
Well, that's what makes the sport all the more interesting, though, I guess, is we can have discussions like this at a great event like Sebring. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sebring, everybody. There is your leader, Laurent Aiello, continuing to lap beautifully in the #1 Infineon R8. The big story is in second as the number 18 Golf Audi has made a stop, and that is promoted #2. I believe Tom Christensen on board that machine. Check that, it's Emanuele Pirro on board that #2 machine has moved up. And oh, big moment there by the Riley and Scott, getting trapped behind one of the GT cars, and Aiello reading it beautifully. But boy, I'll tell you, this guy's brave, isn't he, making the moves he's making out there?
I just wish television really captured what it's like to drive a car down between and do a zigzag and brake for a 50-mile-an-hour hairpin, because I tell you, it will catch your breath and stop your heart sometimes, Derek. You've been there and I've been there. Television just doesn't do it justice.
No, but I tell you, it's a lot worse than the old check, like the old hairpin.
Oh,
yeah, a little tire ball in front of you.
Exactly.
There's a look at the #2 Audi now in second. Emanuele Pirro once again on board and doing a great job, because the number 18 Golf car did make a quick stop down the pit lane. And so it is an Audi factory 1-2 once again.
This is where it's very dodgy, coming around the outside of that long turn and then trying to find yourself back in for the hairpin. You don't know if the guys are going to drift out, if they're on the limit. Very dodgy overtaking down there.
Have to be awfully alert right there. There is the new Panos LMP07, a car that is very futuristic looking, and one would think has a great future. When we came on the air, Derek Daly was showing you a bit of the Irish. I think we found a guy who actually outdid him a little bit. Flashing, lit clover leaves hanging around his neck. Don Panos has joined us here in the booth. And Don, obviously been a long day for the cars out there, but that's all part of the learning and development program.
Right. Everybody knows that Sebring is the one track that we race on that will show you what's going to break before you get to Le Mans. And we just didn't realize that the list was that big today on this car. This car had a great week 2 weeks ago in Texas. And was leading with out-of-sequence fuel stop and lost the race, but could have won it. But Sebring has shown that we still have work to do on the alternator. We have a little bit of a water problem that was breaking, and it's a new engine, new chassis, new gearbox, and we're finding out all the weaknesses. But the guys are getting the car back out. It's going to keep racing, and hope that we get to the end of the list. There's nothing else new.
Don, you're very much a trailblazer. This car represents probably your type of personality. You want to try and prove that this concept can be as good as anything. Is that the reason behind the concept?
Right, and I think also, you know, well, first of all, it's a very unusual car. It's very low. It's got 2 different chassis, a real tub and then a front chassis. It's got a front engine. It's got a new developed engine, 4 liters, V8. The transaxle is, half the size of the previous one. It's 80 pounds lighter. And this is the step forward. I mean, whether people put their engines up front or not is immaterial, but this gearbox can help a lot of people in the future. It continues to get developed. This shape, lowness.
The engine.
Yeah, the engine, 4-liter, right? It's like a Swiss watch. There's no belts off that engine. Everything's gear-driven. And it's, you know, this engine's only 6 months out there, so we know major manufacturers spend years to develop them, but it's doing fine.
Well, and that's the thing, too, isn't it? We're watching the Audis that are running so strong here with a car that's evolved after an incredibly successful one. This is a revolution in a way from your previous car. It's going to have teething problems.
Exactly, and it sure does, and Sebring's proven that to us today.
Now, I have to ask you, you were in here as we were going to break before, and we were discussing some of the developments with the new Seline and the like. As we look at the hotel, is that your room dead set center there, Doc?
Yeah, that's it.
But I was going to ask you.
And that's his room beside it. Beside that, he owns all those rooms.
All he needs is a blonde to stick a head out of that middle room right now. It'd be really embarrassing.
That'd be my wife.
Yeah.
But seriously, I was going to ask you. You were here when we were, discussing the development of the Seline versus the Vette and all that. What's your take on that?
Well, I think it's like everything else in life. Things have to start, and maybe for Corvettes and Vipers, it was unfortunate that Seline started at this time. But let's realize what the ACO and people in sports cars are trying to do, and even myself. We've seen a huge number of small manufacturers go by the wayside. And the reason for that is that because there were some rules out there that you needed to produce 2,000 or 3,000 cars or whatever. And the problem is that you shouldn't judge a company's ability to produce a road car or a race car on the basis of their marketing department. And that's even true for our Panos cars or road cars. If you develop a road car, if you're going to sell it to the public, it should be able to race if it meets all the rules. And their sequencing was that Seline came out, but I happen to know that Seline is going to sell and is selling that car as a road car. It'll be the same engine, the same package that's in this race car. And I give them Seline and Tony Johnson credit for putting all this together and looking forward. Now, the ACO made the decision, looked at all their factory, all their information, all their cars, all their design, made a decision that this is going to be and will be sold as a road car, and they've let it in. But I was saying also, I remember 1997, the FIA said that cars in 96 had to be homologated to race in 97, and bingo, at the last moment they changed for Mercedes to come in, and Mercedes didn't have to homologate till the end of the year. And our team, the Panos team, lost about 3.5 months of development time, and our first race turned out to be then Sebring. So it comes around, I guess, and we all have to learn to live with it.
Don, you have come into sports car racing, created the American Le Mans series. You've bought racing car companies involved in so many different things. You are a forward thinker. Is the business plan of what you want to do going down according to the way you want it? And what is the end result that you want for sports car racing for the years to the future that has caused you to make such a huge personal commitment and financial commitment to build what we are looking at today?
Right. Well, the first question, to answer your first question, is that I think you only have to look out over the paddock today and you see this is probably, I think it will turn out to be the largest sports car crowd that ever watched a race in the United States, sports car race.
Right.
So compared to 1997 when there was maybe 40% of this amount of people here, so I think that part is working. But I think when you read our slogan, it says for the fans, and what the fans really want to see is they want to see cars go faster, not slower. They want to see cars win because they won because there's stable rules and no advantage once throughout the year. The cars are the stars of sports car racing because we have multiple drivers and it's hard to get all that leverage up there. But the fans want to see technology. They want to see good racing. They want to see the cars that are faster win. It might mean that Audi's dominating right now, but not necessarily.
Well, I'll tell you what, Don, can you stick around for another second? We'd love to have you stick around. We have to step away for just a moment. But out front, again, Laurentiello continues to run very strongly here with teammates number 2 Emmanuel Pirro in second, then the Golf Audi, then the Champion Audi, and then it is the Riley and Scott. That's your top 5. right on board with the number 23 McKenna Porsche. Lucas Luhr now is back behind the wheel of that machine that came in 10th overall, 3rd in the GT division. Sasha Maassen stepped out. Luhr on board. Let's go down to Dave Burns, who's got an update on what unfolded in that stop. Dave?
Absolutely nothing, Greg, and that's the good thing for the GT leader. It was a great stop. They had no problems whatsoever. Sasha Maassen just tapped out. Lucas Luhr got into the crew, went to work. I guess you could call it Porsche-like efficiency. Now their teammate running in 3rd position, Randy Pope, still at the wheel. They are at 3rd position in GT, that is. Randy's at the wheel. He is coming in this next lap, and he's going to get out. Christian Menzel is going to get in. They also expect to do nothing more than change tires, fill it with fuel, and of course fill that driver's drink bottle. All important on a hot day like today.
All right, and when Pope brings it in, he has now officially moved to 2nd, so they'll be coming in out of 2nd. And we're on board here right now. Following around, watching our E-Slam speed line on the bottom of the screen.
And hopefully Debbie and Sammy saw that last message from Pete Barron's dad, I believe. Yeah, PL Barron.
There you go.
We got it on.
Up in front there, somebody locked up big time. Another of the Porsches in that area.
It's so vital to get onto this straight smoothly.
Don, as you watch the cars go down through all these surface changes, people talk about the bumps and the harshness of Sebring, but it's almost part of the character. Have you ever been tempted to resurface the whole thing?
Yeah, when I first was able to acquire Sebring, I thought about that.
Yeah.
And then I started talking to everybody about the history and the tradition. Now, when the guys are racing, they don't like it.
Yeah.
But when they're having a beer afterwards and they start discussing the whole thing, they talk about the character of the place. And if they don't have to drive on it that instant, it does have the character. It does bring out the best.
Sure.
Everything that's done well at Sebring the last few years is placed exactly that way at Le Mans. This track will make you in good stead to do a good job at Le Mans, and that's what makes it so great.
Corvette down in pit lane. That is number 4, Kelly Collins behind the wheel. And I remember they had a stop not long ago. Excuse me, that's the number 3 down in the pits, and they have been having that problem. Chris Neifel now behind the wheel with the car starting. They replaced the starter. One would hope that that has been alleviated here. This looks as though it is a fairly routine stop. Driver change being affected. That is Ron Fellows getting on board. Let's take a look at some of the GTS highlights that occurred a little bit earlier on here in the 12 hours of Sebring. First of all, some big problems by the new American Viper team. First of all, big lurid spin, nice save. Minor contact, looked okay. Another spin and an off. Just collected some cones, but again, looked like they got away with it. But problems then happened here. Left rear wheel and suspension problem. The car laying down in the tire. Lot of ugly, ugly smoke. But then, of course, the Seline had problems. The rear bodywork coming off that car, but they fixed it. They were blindingly fast, ducked underneath the number 4 Corvette after the vet pitted. They have the bag taken off of the radiator and duct inlets. And that was it, as the number 26 Seline in front in GTS. There it is, leading in that category right now and having himself a very, very solid day.
Seline has not lasted more than 3 hours to date, so this is quite a major feat for them in this heat.
It's very true. They have put in a very strong performance. Don Panos is still here. Don, I want to ask you, obviously there's a lot of news, a lot of speculation coming about the race in Australia. What's up? Anything new for us?
Well, as you know, the race in Adelaide was canceled. That was an electoral political thing. They had elections, and that party was losing every state in Australia, and the remaining party in South Australia just decided to give the money to the nurses. But however, the next week we had 7 invitations from Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane, and of course we'd agreed to do a deal in Perth. So I believe that in the next few weeks we'll be announcing the next 4 weeks where the race will be. We'll be on December 8th, and you know, I guess it'll be a little bit of a surprise, but think of Sydney or think of Brisbane or Melbourne. So we'll be making the decision. I'm going over a week from Monday.
And think of an awesome welcome.
Oh yeah, I mean, if anybody can replicate what happened in Adelaide to the hospitality of our teams and our group, if that's Australia all over, we'll be delighted to go anywhere.
We could do it in Ireland, I guarantee you.
Oh yeah, and I understand there's a track that they're trying to get ready there at Mondella. A lot of improvements.
Yeah, remember running there many, many times.
We do want to keep Don Panos because it's not often you get a man of his stature here in the booth. I'm going to prod him with a few more leading questions right after this break. So, Don, please hang on.
As Derek said, we're going to pause for just a minute here. There's a look at your leader in GTS, the Giese Conrad Seline, in the hands of Terry Borchler. Welcome back. The second place GT car, Randy Popst, has stopped down in the pits. That's the Alex Jones McKenna Porsche. Randy Popst did get out of the car. They effected a driver's change, and Christian Menzel, the great German talent, is now behind the wheel of that car. Bit of a longish stop. They're taking care of business very efficiently down here. Make sure that car is ready to get back out on track. Everything is done. Car's down off the air jack, starts up, and it is on its way. There is the Banana Joe's Lola Judd working by our GT division, GTS division, leading Seline. We think this car might be making a pit stop next time. And we have a yellow flag being waved in the background there. I'm not exactly sure. It's not a full course. It's just a single yellow, so not sure what that was for. But nonetheless, there is Borchler on board. And by the way, Terry Borchler asked us to deliver a special message. His wife, Tracy, is almost always with him at the track. She travels with him whenever possible. This is the first time she hasn't been with him for a long time. The reason, she is very pregnant, and he wanted to say hello and that he's thinking about her, even though he's leading the class and doing a great job. There's the yellow flag, but I have not yet seen for what precisely. Oh, there it is.
They're towing something away. I saw that. Let's see what it was.
It's a number 15 Barber Porsche. Brady Willingham behind the wheel at the time, we believe.
That is actually, you may recognize the color scheme of that. That is one of the former factory cars that Dick Barber ran last year for people like Bob Wallach, Sasha Masson, Lucas Luhr, Dirk Mueller, etc. Now in private hands. Dick Barber, of course, going to the prototype class by Donington, I believe, in England coming up.
So again, there's Borchler in the Seline, and we anticipate him making a stop this time by. And this is from the lead in the GTS division, a lead of some 15 seconds, so he will most assuredly lose that lead to the number 4 Corvette that sits behind him with Kelly Collins behind the wheel.
We got into all sorts of trouble at home today, talking to Terry Borchler's wife Tracy, because he says he's there working hard trying to get enough money to buy her a new truck.
Really?
That's what it is, apparently.
That's tough. Well, here he comes. This is Borchler, who he may get a raise after this performance. Maybe that truck's on its way. Let's go down to Dave Burns.
Greg, they thought they might stay out one more lap. They were calculating their fuel, then decided to play it safe and just come in now. One of the really interesting things that's going on right now with Seline is that every street Seline will have, or does have, Pirellis as it rolls off the factory floor. And Pirelli has been not producing a lot of racing tires in the last year because they've been upgrading their production facility for race tires. So the only thing they've been able to really get a handle on is the fact that they can supply Porsche Super Cup tires. Well, this car takes that tire, exact sizes, and so they will run Pirellis at Le Mans. Now, they don't know if they're going to be able to supply it for the other cars, but they know that they'll be able to get the Pirellis on the Seline. So that'll be a great return for that tire brand as well. Now the overall leader is in. Let's go to Alan.
Yeah, that's right. It's a routine pit stop. Aiello has got out of the car. Dindo Capello's got in. They changed all 4 tires, put the fuel in. Starts first time. Perfectly routine.
And very quick, as is that seems to be the way of the Audi factory program. They do everything so well. Capello back on board now. They're just working still on that tire change here on the Seline car. And interesting enough, Franz Conrad getting on board. The 2 drivers that are sharing the car with him are actually factory loaners, if you will. It's Borchler and Gavin, of course, signed with the Seline factory, and they made them available to help Franz Conrad here at Sebring.
As we look at the dominant Audi here, we still have Don Panos here with us. Don, when you look at the grid and the Audis are 4 seconds out clear of the rest of the field, how do you entice other major manufacturers to come in to be competition to Audi? Or is that a prime concern to you to bring more people in?
Oh, we want more people, and people are coming. Chrysler's coming.
Factory.
Yes, Chrysler's coming, Bentley's coming. I spent a lot of time convincing Audi to sell cars to privateers. We want other manufacturers to sell cars to privateers. And as you see today, And as we saw last year, you know, the Dams team actually, I heard the broadcast a while ago, the Dams team was actually faster than the factory last year at Le Mans for their one car that was running.
Right.
And today, these privateers of Audi are giving Audi a pretty good test today at the factory. We were able to give them a good test last week at Texas. It's about development. And racing isn't whether you have an assurance that you can win all the time. What brings people and makes them want to race is if you can give them a little bit of hope and a chance to win.
Right.
That's what makes it. And privateers are important. Without them, there wouldn't be sports car racing. In our series, we take care of them with the prize funds and the awards, but we want them to see their technology increase.
But the backbone is factory-supported racing teams and factory-supported teams.
I'd say it's not exactly the backbone, but the fans want to see this, and it has a huge influence on where they go to watch.
Okay, good.
Well, if the factories make the investment to build the cars and then provide them to a variety of teams, I mean, that worked for Porsche for an awful lot of years to produce some of the greatest sports car racing ever. It certainly can happen here. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sebring. There's the Seline back on track now. Of course, has dipped back into the second spot as a result of their pit stop. And of course, the Corvette is now in front, but the driver who just put in a tremendous stint or two on board that Seline is with Dave Burns.
You know, this pit reporter's feet may be red, but they're not red like Terry Borchello's right now. Terry's are hurting a bit. You say, though, you're not sure if they're burned or if you've really just fatigued them, right?
Yeah, it's like I got a stinger on my heel. I'm not sure what it is. It literally feels like a stinger.
Now, you did a double, so is it a new car thing per se, or just the length of time you think you spent in the car?
Well, doing a double in the middle of the day, especially with the heat like this, I think my legs just got a little bit tired. I got a little bit lazy. I was trying to be real clean with the shifts. We're trying to take care of the gearbox in the Seline S7. Want to make sure it goes all the way to the end of 12 hours.
I understand for the first time in quite some time, one of your biggest fans isn't here. Who is that and why not?
That's my wife, Tracy. She's sitting at home. Hopefully she's watching. She's about 8 months pregnant, and I'm sure she's got a cheering squad there in the living room.
Will it be your first?
It'll be our second. Taylor is probably sitting there nagging on her right now.
Wave it, Taylor.
Hey, Taylor. I love you.
All right. And he's done a double now, so he's going to have a bit of a rest. Remember, Franz Conrad has taken over now in the Seline.
And, you know, a great story with the other driver of that car as well, Oliver Gavin. He showed up here, had 8 laps ever in a Seline of any type. He did the qualifying and put it on pole, so a pretty stellar job there. On board now with Laurent Aiello, we take a look at some of the great telemetry here, and you can see the loads that are being exerted on the car and thus the drivers on board. We're very happy to have with us in the booth now the Vice President of Audi of America, Len Hunt. Len, we were finishing up talking with Don Panos, and he was talking about the factories not being the backbone of the series. We both all stood up and looked around, looked at you, and there you were standing there, and you guys had a good laugh about that. But first of all, congratulations on what has been just another tremendous performance here.
It's really nice, you know. Obviously, we're picking up where we left off last year, but the big difference is with the privateers. I suppose, as Derek could say, you know, we just hitched a couple more wagons to our freight train.
Yes, you did indeed. You did indeed. Now, something that I really try and bring across to people when they try to understand why people race. Hugely successful, Len, last year, this program, initiated by you here in America. Can you measure it, Len? Do you see the difference? Does it energize your people? Does it sell your cars?
Yes, and yes.
It does. It really does.
I mean, it really is. If you look and think that what you obviously you want to sell cars, and last year the acid test, we broke all records. We sold more cars in North America than we've ever sold before. So that's one acid test. But the thing is, you're also trying to develop your brand. It's really important that people understand what Audi is. And as soon as you try and understand what Audi is, you go back in its history. And racing is so rich in that history. So to be in racing and dominating it, like we did with Super Touring in Europe and around the world in the mid-90s, this is now a comeback for us. And we produced 6 TV commercials, loads of print stuff. It became mainstream for us. And now people start thinking, well, you know, the specialist sports cars we do, the TT, the S-Series cars, they just fly out of the door.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Len, about that. It's not just your involvement here. You mentioned all the other ones, of course, in the States here with Derek Bell. You're running in the World Challenge Championship. It seems like a large manufacturer, nod these days is going to Formula One, and
well, I don't think you need to do that.
Purposely,
absolutely. We want to establish a broad base in motorsport with 5-year plans and really build it into the structure of what we do. And you know what Derek's doing with Michael Galati and our dealer, let's face it, we've got a dealer champion who are racing an R8 and are also racing in the Speed Vision Challenge with the S4s. There we were yesterday with Michael Galati racing and coming second and actually leading the championship in a car that virtually people have gone by. So you see the cars in the showroom, you see the stuff here that's got the advanced technology, the showcasing the technology. It's just perfect base for us.
And that's one of the follow-ups to that, isn't it? Is that you're racing the sedans that look like and in fact are the cars you can buy. But everybody says, well, you go to Formula One for the high technology. These R8s.
Oh, this is
pretty exorbitant technology.
And for me, I've got to be honest. In the States, it's one big race. Okay, they got 250,000 people to the Formula One race, but it's Michael Schumacher, it's Ferrari, it's Hakkinen, and then I get so many people say to me, "Oh, BMW are in Formula One, are they?" And then look at what happened with Jaguar. And to me, sports car racing is important. People like it. It's growing, and I really want to support it.
We just saw the number 2 second-placed Audi making its move down into the pits.
Yeah.
We were looking briefly, of course, at the car of Stefan Johansson, the new Golf car. We'll touch more on that. Let's get down to Alan de Cadenet. Alan?
Yeah, that's right. It's driver change. Pirro has gone out and Biella's gone in. They're putting the fuel in. They are going to change the tires. They have a new set of tires ready to go on this car just as soon as they've got all the fuel in. Just getting a little helping hand there from his co-driver to get the seat belts on. That's about the trickiest thing with these Audis that really they have to do, get the seat belts fixed. He's got them fixed, up it goes.
And actually, as our own Dorsey Schrader told us earlier on, the worst time for the driver is when he has to stand up, bend right over in such a heat haze that he's embroiled in because he just got out of the car. He said that's physically the most difficult time to try and help somebody else strap in. Len, if I could just ask you another leading question.
Yeah, why not?
You come here 4 seconds a lap faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
Is there a danger that you've set the bar so high that you might scare other manufacturers away?
No, I don't think that's ever the case. I think two things there. I think you come in and whatever happens, your name goes on the trophy and it will be there forever. That's at Sebring. It was great to be putting the picture on the wall at Chicane Restaurant the other night with all those greats. First time Audi's ever been there.
Yeah.
But also on the Le Mans Trophy, we saw it for the first time. Yeah, it's going to sort of set the challenge down. And from what my experience with other manufacturers is they like to rise to a challenge rather than run away from it.
Good point.
Alan de Cadenet, they most definitely have thrown the gauntlet down.
Yes, I've been listening to what Len has been saying, and I totally agree with him. When you've got a team like Jost's Audi team here that is just as efficient as any Grand Prix team on the planet, why bother to change formally when you can be so successful and get your message across, which is precisely what they do. I think this Audi team here is an object lesson to anybody ever thinking about going into endurance racing. This is the benchmark. If you can keep up with these guys, you're really motoring.
Chances of other people being able to buy one of these Audis then?
Well, my view is as wide as possible because, as Don was saying, we've got to encourage privateers to come and race. They are really the backbone of it. And, we have no object. We open. There's no rules, as you can imagine. And I've been really impressed with Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich at Audi Sport, how he's brought the people in and let them just, see what goes on and be part of the family. It's very, very good. And, the big thing for us with the domestics coming in is equally good for us.
It's interesting that Len says on the heels of the success on the racetrack, they've also sold a record number of cars. I don't think it's a coincidence because when Firestone came back to Indy, their retail sales went up 70% within 2.5 years with their success at Indy on the racetrack.
Let me jump in 1 second. Our leader in GT is in the pits. Dave?
That is JJ Leto and his world-famous hot feet get out. It will be York Mueller jumping in, and no other reported changes desired or apparently being made on the BMW at this point. Again, this wonderful sounding V8 in this Beamer is just running extremely well. And Greg, tell me right now, I think, are they on the same lap as a 23? Or did they get a lap on them?
they were a lap up on them, so I think they may have, according to the monitors. Now, of course, that needs to reset yet, but that's what it showed. Now, right now, we are watching that car that sits in second spot. The number 23 entry is on its way down the Ullman Straight, heading into Sunset. So we'll be watching, following the number 1 overall leading Audi. Of course, I made a mistake. I said that was Laurent Aiello still on board. That's Dindo Capello driving that car. But here comes that Porsche that's making its way around. We'll keep an eye on the monitors here and see exactly what sets up. There is the GT leading BMW.
No,
here comes
that's
the car.
a change, exactly.
And there it is. They're watching for it. And no, according to the monitors, he is now on the lead lap.
1 minute 25 seconds behind.
Yep. Oh, a little problem, and the BMW is able to head out, but so there's the story. That's going to be very interesting indeed. And for a team that came in here professing that, well, this is just a test session, we don't know that the car will even last, so we're just going to go out and treat it as a test session to get ready. They are putting on one strong debut performance here at the 12 Hours of Sebring. The new BMW Motorsports built V8 having a good debut run here at the 12 Hours. Welcome back. Here's a group with tremendous taste, I think. They really know what's good in terms of motorsport. And one of the reasons is, well, we bring you the 12 Hours of Sebring, and then shortly thereafter we bring you live coverage of the second round of the Formula One World Championship. The Grand Prix of Malaysia coming up Sunday morning at 1:30 a.m. Eastern Time, basically just a couple hours after the conclusion of the 12 Hours of Sebring, so make sure you stay tuned. A lot of people have been wondering, what's the current situation regarding qualifying? Well, we'll be able to give that to you. It's Ferrari 1-2 after qualifying, Schumacher and Barrichello. The big story, though, was Ralf Schumacher. 3 times during the course of the qualifying session, he was on pole. The Michelin tires seemed to like the Sepang circuit, and Schumacher ended up 3rd after both his brother Mike and Rubens threw in some late flyers. Mika Hakkinen 4th, Gianno Trulli 5th, Juan Pablo Montoya in 6th, Villeneuve 7th, big surprise David Coulthard back in 8th, struggling once again in qualifying. Frentzen 9th, and 10th is Oliver Panis. So there's a good idea of what's going to happen when we get to Malaysia a little bit later tonight. There's your leader still in the GT division, the number 42 Schnitzer BMW, and that now is Mueller behind the wheel.
You saw a quick glimpse of the crowd as we came back on the air there. More than 100,000 people here today. Last year, over the course of the 3 days, you had 170,000 people here, but there are more people here, as Don Panos mentioned earlier on, the largest attended sports car event in America. I mean, and it is an event here. This is just more than a race. This is an event in itself.
Well, they're very confident. There's well over 100,000 people here today. And yesterday, I took some time. We were able to get around and explore. I think it was probably easily the biggest Friday crowd I've ever seen here. They had a record of 170,000 total for 3 days last year. They could be well underway to breaking that. And by the way, we've checked the scoring, and as a matter of fact, there was a change. It is the number 23 Porsche of Lucas Luhr now has picked up the lead. Timing is reset, and Luhr is the leader with the number 42 Schnitzer BMW in second spot in GT. 3rd is the team car to this one, the McKenna number 22 Porsche of Alex Job.
And still with us here in the booth is Len Hunt, VP of Audi North America. Len, as you look at the different classes, are there any more Audi plans? Would you consider a GT class or a GTS car?
Well, I mentioned earlier Formula One, and we were talking about the BMW. I'm full of admiration for BMW Motorsport, Team Schnitzer here. I think what they're doing is superb. And of course, the better they do, the more they fire my aspirations to go and chase them there as well. We chased them in the LMP, and you know, I think long term, if we're committed to building that broad base of motorsport, that's an avenue we could look at.
Len, do you have an influence on where Audi North America races, or do you just sign the checks?
No, it's far more than signing the checks. We are very close to Dr. Ulrich and Dr. Petkin, the chairman of the company, to whom I would say are some of the most passionate people I've ever met about racing, because they should be. They lead the company, but they bring us in. We're very close.
Right, good.
By the way, we're watching our East SummerSlam speed line going across the bottom of the screen. One of the questions was why no Dick Barber LMP 675s, that new trick program. Well, you know, Dick Barber, he's not going to do it until he can do it right, and I think it's an issue of late start development, isn't it?
April 6th, they get their first car delivered. They will test it that week and then take it to Le Mans. That is very much a sort of a team factory support each other type effort, but late delivery of the car. Reynard want to make sure it's good because last year's car was not good, and Dick Barber moving up a class from the GT success of last year.
They had a serious announcement about that here. Barber, Reynard, everybody involved talked about that, and one of the things Reynard said was their next car is made to LMP 675 specs, and you can upgrade it to 900 as opposed to what they did with the ROC-VWs. But Barber said it was those ROC-VW turbos at Le Mans. He watched what they were doing, and he said, this car, done right, can win overall. And he said, that's the way we want to go with it. It's going to be fascinating to watch.
Len, we just saw a leaderboard at the top. It has to make you feel good that a customer, Stefan Johansson, can come on your doorstep, say, I'd like to buy one of your cars, and run as fast as he can. Everybody as quick as the factory cars.
I think it's terrific.
Yeah.
I really do. And you know, at the end of the day, they're all Audis.
All Audis, exactly.
Let me jump in real quick. Our GTS leader is in. Dave?
Yeah, Greg, Frank Freon is going to jump back in the car, and Kelly Collins is going to get back out. Remember earlier, Frank was one of the ones who was reporting a little bit of overheating, and they were afraid they might have to give him intravenous food, so to speak, for his body, fluids that is, but they did not. I just checked with Frank, and he says he's ready to go for the next stint. Now, I believe they're a lap up on the GTS second place, that, of course, being the Seline. So if the Seline comes by this time, that will not have any effect. So Kelly Collins hopping out, and he is still in helmet, but we'll try to get a quick word with him if we can while we're doing this. And he's going to unbuckle too. Pretty tired from his stint. As Frank gets in now, of course, he will be taking in for about 50 minutes, which around here about 26 laps or so. So it really wears a guy out. Kelly's with us now. Kelly, compare that stint to the one before. Is it getting easier to drive out there?
Well, that was a double stint. Single.
Then that would be harder.
Exactly. I'm a little winded right now. I had to put my visor up and trap some air in my helmet.
Actually, that's a very good sound, isn't it?
That's a good sound. There's some oil on the back of the car that I just saw when I came around the back of the car. Yeah, I'm just a little winded right now. It's a hard pace to try to keep up with the Seline right now and conserve our tires. We've got a different strategy than our first pit. For our first stint, all of us, we had tires going off for like 6 laps, and it scared us to death. So we all thought we had flat tires, so now we're conserving a little bit more, and we're trying to just baby our tires and make them stand about 2 or 4 see where we come out at the end.
Thanks, Kelly. Great information.
Well, again, remember, he came off of that tough crash in Texas, and we can forgive him for being a little bit winded in the leg. And obviously, we heard earlier Andy Pilgrim trying to coach the drivers about areas on the track for these vets where they can ease the car through, keep those tires underneath them for just a little bit longer. So great opportunity here. But the number 4 vet continues out front right now. We're going to step away for a brief moment here at Sebring, but we will be right back. Welcome back, everybody, as we are watching the 3rd place, number 2, Infineon Audi R8. Frank Biela now behind the wheel of that car. Len Hunt still with us. Len, as I want to ask you a quick question about that. We're talking about the different Audis that are running here.
Yeah.
Stefan Johansson has brought the Gulf Audi and the Gulf colors back, and of course started with the GT40s and then the Porsches. Everywhere that Gulf has gone, it seems there's some magic related there as well. As a matter of fact, that car making its way into the pits, that's just another little bit of magic, isn't it?
It's absolutely, especially sitting here with Derek Bell, it's absolutely magic. But you know, it's important that we see, there's two Audi factory cars there. There's now the Gulf car, we've got the Champion car, and these privateers really do add.
Let's swing it down real quick to Alan DeCatney.
Yes, this car, they've had a driver change now. Stefan Johansson's got out, and he's just helping Guy Smith in with his seat belts. And this has to be the prettiest car on the track. I think this wonderful retro look is just the best thing. Gulf very clever supporting this car. The fuel's going in. They've got some fresh tires ready to go on just in case they need them. But, yep, they're going to change. They're going to change one. I just think interesting. This team is really winging it. I mean, they're deciding when the driver comes in, he signals whether he wants to get out or not. Stefan did a double stint, and they're just winging it, playing it by ear. If the driver wants to do a double stint, then he can.
Yeah, both of the mirrors gone on that car as well, Alan.
That's right. That's absolutely right. They changed the rear tires. That's a really nice start, though. He started the car in gear, you see. He's learning a lesson there, so you don't storm it with the clutch.
But again, that car is that obviously we may have found a little weak link in the Audis. It seems that all of the R8s are losing mirrors are coming off of the car.
But you know what, a technical point that I think Derek Bell can address. This starting in the pits, Derek, they're actually designed to do this, are they?
When they start the car up, it's in gear, and it immediately surges forward at a certain number of revs and surges up the road. It's only when it gets to the rev limiter that you get back on the throttle yourself and control it. So don't stand in front of it when they start it up, because it's going off on its own. You've got no control.
Right, interesting point.
That's a good point. And of course, I was talking about the Audis.
Yeah, but we're leading the race so much, we've really decided we don't need the extra weight to the glass, because why would we want to see who's behind us?
It'd be great at night, there'll be no reflection in the mirror.
Absolutely.
Well, I was going to say, and if that's the worst of your problems, I think life's pretty good at this point. Let's go back down to Alan DeCadney very quickly. Alan?
Stefan, you lost your rear view mirror there. I mean, did you notice?
Yes, I noticed indeed. It's okay now with the speed we're going, but I'd like to have something on there for the night stage.
Are you surprised how good this car is? I mean, you've driven a lot of cars in your great career, but I mean, this must really surprise you, this little car.
Yeah, the car is just unbelievable. I mean, it's so easy to drive, does everything you want it to do, and, you know, it's just super quick, you know, it makes life so much easier.
But it's nice to be competitive again, too, isn't it? It's what it's really all about.
Say that again. This makes up for some of the old junk boxes I've been driving in the past years.
Well, I was saying what a pretty little car it is. I mean, it's good news for Gulf coming back into the sport, and that's their history with private engines. You're doing a really nice job for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. You know, it's great to build a relationship with Gulf now. It's so much history, as you say. I mean, they've always had great success in sports cars racing, and I certainly hope we can carry on that tradition.
Well, we've got Len Hunt up in the booth, and I think he's pretty pleased with what you're doing too. Isn't that right, Len?
It is. It's really nice to see Stefan smiling there, because you know, with John Wickham and the team last year, they had some troubles, but it's really nice to see him coming back and really pushing away there.
And I was going to ask you, is it you know, any kind of slap in the face to the factory should one of these customer cars beat you? But listening to what he said about the car does exactly what you want, it's a great thing to drive. That's what Audi's all about.
That's what it's all about.
I mean, that's what you want the customers in the showrooms to say.
That's it. They're part of the family. You know, we support them, and it's really good that, as we said, you know, they're identified. Great that Stefan was talking about the relationship with Gulf there. We've got the relationship with Champion. It's really good it's coming through, but behind the scenes, we're all together.
Now, here's what you've got. You've got the factory car, Derek Bell, chasing one of the customer cars.
Exactly. I mean, you brought it up just now, but let's just go back a few years to IMSA, which is probably the greatest era of sports cars, which this may well be going back into. But everybody used to say, but there's so many Porsche 962s out there. It didn't matter, because they all had a different sponsor on, and it was the Gulf car, then it was the Lohnbrau car, the Budweiser car. And this is what we have to look at.
Those different teams.
Yeah, different teams. Yeah. You know, and it doesn't matter if there's a works team in there, as long as you've got lots of private interests, because I still believe that's what sports cars is backed on.
As Don Pano said, those privateers need to have the opportunity and the possibility of a win.
Yeah, but they can't build rear view mirrors. That's just a really big downfall. I think it's interesting, and we did mention it earlier on. Stefan got his car delivered to Sebring, never saw the car, jumps in with everybody else, including the factory cars, and was fastest on the very first day. That's the type of confidence that car gave him immediately. And when Stefan says, as we look at our Magneti Morelli onboard telemetry here, when Stefan says this is the best racing car he's ever driven, remember, Stefan drove for McLaren in Formula 1, he drove for Ferrari in Formula 1, so the pedigree of racing car he has been in is right at the very top of the tree, and to come in and experience this, that is quite a statement for Stefan to make about this car.
Well, and Dorsey's made it, and Andy Wallace has made it. I mean, it's pretty much a universal decision. I thought Stefan's use of junk box was a great edit as well. And
yeah, he was trying to get the right words there.
He was fighting to do it right.
He settled on junk boxes.
He did pretty well for a Swede, didn't he?
He did.
All right, we continue to ride on board with Ronaldo Capello doing an awesome job out front once again. It is the factory 1-2 in the overall and in the LMP 900 here at Sebring. Welcome back, folks. We are on board, and I'll tell you, at 170 miles an hour, the track sort of folds away in the distance in a big hurry as we're on board with the number 4 Corvette through turn 1, as many have said, one of the toughest turns in all of motorsports, not just this track, and now into turn 3, the old carousel section, modified, of course, just a bit. You get a good look at some of the immense crowd that is here, and there's the 26 Seline. Yes, indeed. 10 seconds now separating the leader in GTS, the Vet, and the number 26 car sitting in second. So this class, which in all honesty, in some of the previous races, and of course even last year with the Viper Vet, sometimes it was pretty much a runaway for the Eureka Vipers, and now earlier for the Vets. We've got ourselves a great scrap going on.
We really do, and remember, we're 6 hours almost into this event, and this GTS battle is still locked together, as was the GT battle. But Franz Conrad, who is the owner of this car, owner of Conrad Motorsport, is behind the wheel right now, having had a yeoman service from Terry Borchiller. I wonder, Derek, would Conrad be as physically fit and as able as Borchiller was to carry this thing for a double stint? I doubt it.
I don't think he's going to do double stint.
I don't think so.
Nothing against France, but he's not been used to driving these big cars. You know, he's been used to Porsches for some years since he got out of the 962s, which were big.
Watching here the Magneti Marelli on telemetry now on the Vet, and you can see that the biggest difference there is the loads in the corners. I mean, that Audi was burying those lateral G-force loads. This gets up to maybe 1.5, maybe a tick over that. That is the big difference, as well as the braking on these cars.
And what's the straight line speed here? About 145, 150 miles an hour, but we're going to go back to the battle, because look at this. Here is the factory versus the privateers. Boy, this is good stuff.
But it's the other factory car this time. It's not the number 2 car, is it? This is number 1, right?
Well, this is a battle to put them down a lap, to put Kellner's down just another lap. Kellner's going to be fighting for all he's worth to prevent that from happening. They sit right now about 3 laps adrift. One would surmise it would be a bit closer, of course, except for the fact that they had a bad batch, they think, of tires in the opening stint, and then they made the change, had a great set of tires. Andy Wallace radioed in, according to Dorsey, said this feels great, everything's super, and then he got a puncture. Just a fluky deal. So they had to make a couple of unplanned stops, and that's really hurt them.
And it hasn't all been hunky-dory for the factory boys either, because they have taken care of a serious electrical problem in one of their cars, lost almost half a lap, put them behind a little bit, and that has allowed Capello's car to go ahead into the lead.
You just heard him back off just a little bit as he went inside that Porsche. He wasn't sure that the Porsche was going to dive across and cut him off in that left-hander back there.
I suppose you do have to approach those cars, particularly if they're battling in front of you, with a lot of trepidation. I mean, you got to be a little nervous on that throttle foot.
Well, you do, because it's a heck of a long race, and you know, we're paid to stay on the road, not go off. And even as you come up to that turn there, you've got the adverse camber to contend with too.
Something else we should tell everybody, the lights that you see on the dashboard here, that's the only indication the driver has as to the speed the engine's going. There is no rev counters on these cars. The drivers have no idea, and they are not told what these engines rev to as Kellner's peels off to the pit lane on your right-hand side. Derek, have you ever driven a racing car with no rev counter specifically not put in there so you didn't know what it would do?
The amazing thing is I did this just yesterday. And when my car stopped out on the racetrack, I was going, is the engine running or isn't it? And I was flipping the throttle, but I couldn't see any revs.
Yes.
I don't know until I get up on the limiter.
Look at now those lights you were talking about, when they just flash in sequence like that, that's the rev limiter that keeps the speed limited in the pits. That's now in effect, and he stops.
Great picture also. You see him undo his seatbelt, ready to jump right out before Andy Wallace gets himself put in.
Let's go down to Alan DeCatney.
Kellner's is getting out. He's out, in fact, and Andy Wallace is getting in. He's just putting his seat insert in. There'll be the usual seatbelt situation. Whilst the fuel goes in, of course, everybody else poised, as you can see. to get on with the action, changing tyres. They've got 2 new fronts and 2 new rears. I don't quite know what they're going to do until the car goes up in the air, but I think they're definitely going to change the fronts. They've got the 2 air hammers all ready to go.
Alan, interesting how both those drivers use a little plexiglass wing on their helmet to help with buffeting.
Yes, I think that is a sort of a small problem. Depends how much the driver's head sticks out of the cockpit, of course. They have to fine-tune it, because I noticed earlier Andy Wallace's head was getting banged around quite a lot. That's very fatiguing for a driver, because he wants to keep his head nice and still, otherwise he gets a headache. Okay, that's just completely straightforward. Driver, tire change, off it goes. He's stalled it. He's picked it up. Okay, he's off.
Can I just make a remark here?
Sure.
6 hours in, we've had virtually no damage. We've had nobody hit anybody of consequence. And last year, remember what we had? We had guys bouncing off each other everywhere. It's actually been an incredibly clean race so far.
You sound more like Murray Walker every day. Wait, that's a kiss of death when somebody says that.
Yeah.
Wreckage everywhere in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely right. By the way, folks, we got a little countdown coming here. We are less than 10 seconds away from the exact halfway mark here at Sebring. As of this point right now, we are halfway done with the 49th running of the Exxon Superflow 12 Hours of Sebring here on board with Andy Wallace. There's some of that bouncing and buffeting that we were talking about, watching that rev limiter go. And something else to watch for, folks, when they come in, if you look on most of the drivers' helmets, the driver getting in the car, there's a patch of Velcro somewhere on the helmet, and the wiring that hooks up to their radio is Velcroed onto that, so it doesn't get trapped underneath the shoulder harness of belt or something. That can really mess up a driver change. They think everything.
You know, for those people in Watkins Glen under a foot of snow, it's 87 degrees here, and that was the Boyce family. Let me just answer a quick email I saw running across the bottom. It was regarding resurfacing of Sebring. Don Panos answered that. In fact, that's how you can email us right there. It comes right to our booth here. We can pull it up or send it across the top of the screen, at the bottom of the screen. But Don Panos did address the resurfacing of Sebring just about 15 or 20 minutes ago and said he will not do it because it takes away from some of the character of Sebring.
By the way, this is what you were talking about earlier, going around one of these GT cars. Watch this.
That is not a friendly gesture, I promise you. Yeah, he is saying...
It wasn't an indication. It might be raining. Please be aware of that.
You know what? That's a universal language, whether you're in Europe or America, right, D?
Unbelievable. All right, we are past halfway here at Sebring. We'll be right back.
The Superflow 12 Hours at Sebring is brought to you by Porsche. Discover what only Porsche brings to driving. And Exxon Superflow Motor Oil. Superflow provides protection that's fast, protection that lasts.
Your chauffeur here past the halfway at Sebring is Ronaldo Capello, the leading Infineon Audi R8, up right now by a couple laps over the teammate machine. Of course, it has been a very eventful race in the LMP 900 division here as well today. We're going to take you back, look at some of the highlights here. First, of course, the start, and it was electric. Everybody took off. The 2 factory cars did lead, although Andy Wallace stayed close. The number 51 Panos behind the wall, very early alternator problems. Watch this fuel spill for the 50 car Brabham. Douse gets out in a hurry. Everything was fine. That car did get back in, although suffering some overheating problems. One of the big moments there is the number 2 machine ripping around the outside of teammate and the lap car for the lead. Then the number 37 Banana Joe's Lola Judd, broken left rear suspension, big problems for them. They've since rebounded. The number 2 pit for the Audi, quite concerned. Why? The car comes in, the telemetry showed something. They had a problem with the electronics on the left bank of that glorious V8. They were able to effect repairs, get him back out. He was on track, but awfully close. Just managing to avoid one of those Vipers that looped around in front of them. And with all of that activity, it is the number 1 out front. But again, Frank Biela, the number 2 cars, have fought back and fought so hard they are back in second. But out of the number 38 car that sits in the 4th spot, the champion Audi, the driver's out. He's with Alan DeCadney.
That's right, with Ralph Kellner. Tell us about your stint, Ralph.
Well, it was pretty exciting. this was the first race for me in the Audi, so I must say I really enjoy it. I would be wrong to say it's easy to drive, but you just have to race it. There are no big problems that you have to deal with, so it's really fantastic to be out there working with this car. The stint was trouble-free so far. In the beginning of the race, we had some trouble with choosing the right tires. I think we sorted it out, and yeah, whilst I was driving, I didn't have any problems whatsoever.
Best car you've ever driven, would you say?
Well, I think it's not fair to compare race cars, but for sure it's the best race car that I've driven in the last couple of years, and for sure you can see that there's a tremendous work in the car, and it's tremendous effort in engineering, and it's just from head to toe, it's just perfect.
You're looking forward to the rest of the season then?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
Yeah, we saw some magic from him at Le Mans last year, driving those ROCVWs in the 675 division. The guy was just blindingly quick. He's also driven the Ferrari 333S. I mean, he's driven some pretty nice stuff, and even you know, he may not have confirmed like everybody else has how great a car it is, but you can tell he's pretty strong on it.
And this is his car here with Andy Wallace, but Ralph Kellners, who we just spoke to, well used to racing and being successful in America in particular. I remember at Watkins Glen in '98, I think, with Thierry Boutsen, who's here today as almost a team manager role. He and Kellners won together at Watkins Glen. We mentioned Boutsen earlier on. We should probably mention it again. He's back here, retired as a racing driver because of a crash at Le Mans, has serious back troubles, but is working with this team to coordinate their great Le Mans effort they're about to launch.
By the way, you saw that sun, and that is exactly what we were talking about. Sunset Bend at the end of that long Ulman straight, the final corner here. It goes on forever, and as that sun drops a little lower in the sky, Derek Bell, that becomes, especially with junk on a windscreen or on your visor, that becomes very nasty indeed. On board here with Frank Freon on the Corvette as he continues to lead. However, the margin shrinking in that battle as well. There's your leaders in the top four. They got awful close, but then they had to stop. That's the number 26 Seline that had closed here within about 5 seconds of the GTS leading vet in their battle. They got to about 5 seconds adrift, but then they had to duck into the pits. There's the number 3 Corvette in pit lane. Ron Fellows, the driver there, although it looks like maybe a driver's change for that car. That car is that's been struggling just a little bit. But I'll tell you what, that machine right there got so close, but then they had to make a stop.
Have we ever had a driver change on number 26? I believe Conrad's not in that car.
That's Gavin. Gavin got on board.
Oliver's orange and blue helmet, yeah.
Were we right?
We were right.
We were right. Franz Conrad would not really be able to stick the pace for a double stint.
We ought to
that
review
could
it.
be costly, though, in this chase of this Corvette.
Well, you say that, but you can change the driver and the time it takes to refuel if you're sharp.
But did he do a full stint?
Oh, that's quite a good point. He might not have done.
Yeah, I don't think he did a full stint.
But he might have got out. He might have got out very quickly.
Yeah. But now they got the man behind the wheel now, because Gavin is fast in everything he gets into.
It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, once we get lap completed and see exactly where they settle out and see what kind of speed now that they are going to be able to put together. Let's go down to Dave Burns. A little information on that, Dave?
Yeah, hey, Greg, Oliver Gavin did get in, and Franz Conrad did hop out. They had to come back in, not because they were low on fuel or because Franz was done, but that rear bodywork situation is coming back to haunt them. So when it broke away earlier, they affected some repairs, and apparently those started to come off again. So it's a problem that with that bodywork dragging, they just can't stay out.
Well, obviously the crew is watching that car every time it comes down that front pit straight very closely in that bodywork area, and any kind of problem starts to even show up with that. I'm sure they're going to address it immediately. You saw Johnny O'Connell now on board, the number 3 vet. And O'Connell, a pretty quick pilot. It'll be fun to watch him start to drop the hammer here a little bit. And there's a look at the back end of that Seline, and obviously they affected some quick repair to it.
You would think there was a way to put some strapping on either side and like pop ribbon, you know, zap on. I mean, there must be a quick way to bolt that up, to strap it on.
Yeah.
Because it's nasty when you know that back rear panel is loose. I mean, there's so much air back there, boy, they're going to have a nasty lift if it came off at speed.
Yeah, or even a couple of zip ties or something, just that you can seriously lock it into place of some sort.
That is a great looking car, though.
Yep. There's O'Connell. That's some serious American muscle that Johnny's wielding around this track right now. But of course, one of the real feature events of this weekend, the Friday feature, was the opening round of the Trans Am Championship for the BF Goodrich Tires Cup. We're going to take you and look at some of the highlights from that race, which unfolded here yesterday afternoon. At the start, Boris Said on the pole. Next to him, Johnny Miller. And they go streaming down in. That was Lou Gelati's Corvette, showed the nose, but Boris led, and led early. Gelati slipping into second. Then Miller got around him. Miller and Boris then waged a great war. Watch this. Johnny Miller now, as Paul Gentilosi's teammate in the Rocket Sports team, takes his Automation Direct Jaguar. It's tough to still get used to saying that after all those years. Got underneath. Boris picked up the lead. Alas, it was 4 but 1 lap. As Boris wasting a little time, Johnny gets a little wide, didn't get the best exit he wanted here out of turn 17. And working now down into that turn 1. Watch Boris here. He got the nose inside and just takes him in very strongly here, then turns in a little sooner, straight line break. Boris Said back on point at this point. At that stage, Gentilosi had gone around Gelati, and his blue and black Jaguar picked up third. Here's Stu Hayner getting around Tommy Archer. That is the new independent Viper picking up the 5th spot. Hayner driving for Sonnen Motorsports. And then G.J. Menon had a tremendous hit and ended up as a spectator. It all started right here. Watch. He exits here over the curb, and as he gets to the end of the curb, bang! You can see that right front suspension broke, goes to serious positive camber and upright let go. He wasn't too aware of it and rode the wall all the way down to turn 16, coming out of Bishop Bend. Was lucky to get out. He was fine, but it was a serious incident. Kept us yellow up until the last 2 laps when they got everything cleared up, went green, and look at this move. That's Kenny Wilden subbing for Leighton Reese. Big lockup into the final turn from Reese. Wilden floats wide. Watts here as Miller tries to go underneath him for third. Didn't quite work, and it ended up Boris Said fending off Paul Gentilosi for the win, and Wilden getting by just barely. And there was Boris Said accepting all the accolades in Victory Circle after winning the opening round. And of course, he finished up awfully strong as well. There were the final results from the opening round yesterday. Boris Said keeping his momentum in those last 4 races of the championship last year, well and truly alive. Gentilosi, but Kenny Wilden, Tommy Archer showing that the new body styles that are being brought into Trans Am are going to be very effective as well. It was a great race, and this Trans Am series is going to be something to watch all season long, which of course you can do on Speed Vision. So keep checking your schedules for that. It was some great racing. On board here, the number 43 Schnitzer BMW. That is the team car, not one of the V8s, as you can tell by the engine note as you listen. That's one of the inline 6s, and that's Dirk Mueller behind the wheel of that car, teamed with Frederick Ekblom. And they're back in the order just a little bit, but not too far, Griff. Very different sound from this car than from the number 42 V8.
Did you mention Boris Said? No, he's obviously in this race too.
Yeah, that's right. I did mention.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure. I was listening to something else.
Okay. You do that so often when I'm talking. I appreciate that. Leader is in. Ronaldo Capello is down in the number 1 Audi. Alan?
Yeah, that's absolutely. He's in the pits. This car has run completely, utterly without any problems whatsoever so far. Haven't had to change brake pads. Haven't even thought about rotors. They don't even check the oil. They certainly haven't had to put the in. Capello's going to stay in the car. They are not going to change the tires. I think as soon as this thing's full of fuel, which is about all they're going to do to it, off he goes. I was going to say it runs like clockwork. I don't know if that's a good analogy or not.
I don't know whether we've mentioned this earlier on, but one of the most astounding facts about this racing car here, and it's a racing car, you don't have to pull the engine out until it's done 10,000 kilometers. And that is unheard of in racing engines today. That is how reliable this thing is.
This is the problem they've had sometimes, getting the car out of the pits, Derek. We saw it at Texas. and they have to, the gearing is so difficult to get that car out of the pits. You have to rev it so high, and sometimes it just bogs a little bit. He managed to refire and get it going, but that's, as Alan said, that's really the first misstep we've seen by this car in the entire race. So they continue to do a nice job. Still have at least a lap in hand over their teammates, couple laps over the customer cars as well. So things looking good up front for the Audi factory. Welcome back, everybody. You're looking at Jean de Bienne Corner, named after the great Belgian endurance ace. Problem 4, that beautiful Courage powered by Peugeot, and obviously some serious problems developing there. Jean-Christophe Bouillon, the driver of that car, and obviously was aware of what was happening and just pulled it off. That looks fairly terminal.
And this is a test session for this French team in preparation for the Le Mans 24-hour race, and they have only gone less than 7 laps. They have a bit of a headache before they try and go 24 at Le Mans. And there is Henri Pescarolo himself, the famous Frenchman. Alan?
Henri, that looked a little terminal. He's talking to his driver. That's very upsetting for him, actually. This was a sort of demolition test for Le Mans. That's the last thing he wanted to have, is the thing blow up on him. He's just talking to his man and see what's going on. Yeah, I don't think we can talk to him. Can we, Henri? That looked a little terminal, I'm afraid.
Yeah, it seems that the engine had a big problem. We are going to see, but either it's a turbo or it's worse. We are looking now.
But the whole point of this Sebring is that it's a test for Le Mans, really, isn't it? I mean, you wanted to find out what might let you down, so that's what you've done in one way, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a bit more than what we were waiting to find here. You know, we had some little problems. That was a good preparation for Le Mans. But here, now it seems to be really worse, so we have to know exactly what happened on the engine.
Ah, c'est du malchance, alors?
I think so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alan. Indeed, a tough break. Now, keep in mind, they ran that C60 chassis with Peugeot power at Le Mans last year. And the car, though, they have stepped it up this year. Peugeot has come on board with a little bit more support. It's a much better program. Thus the test session. But it was the older chassis. They ran 2 cars. Oh, that's right. It was Gachot ran that car at Le Mans last year. They have picked it up for Pescarolo, but Pescarolo was 4th. Best of the rest behind that immense factory Audi outfit at Le Mans last year with a very, very much smaller team. And this guy knows how to do endurance racing.
As you watch our number 4 Corvette here, Andy Pilgrim behind, we heard our Alan de Cadenet just indicating to us that he's fluent in French. And of course, this is an international event, so then I will read this latest email, which came from Mike Donahue from Indianapolis, and his email says, Banachty na failure Padre give. What that means is happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. Then he asked me, could I do some of the broadcasting Gaelic? Tommy up with a kind Gaelga, but now isn't the time. What did I say?
Not a clue.
I can talk Irish or Gaelic, but now isn't the time.
So you and Alan have a step up. Derek, any language you'd like to impress us?
Well, only just bad English, really. Yeah. Alan's exposed himself. He's talking affluent, and I just don't want to expose myself too much.
And I speak American, so I have
well, you've got no
big
problems. Yeah, nobody can understand
big
you.
problems.
I don't know how we get everybody listen to everybody. Such a group of different language people, you know, different accent speaking people here.
But by far the best one today is St. Patrick's Day. Is that Rob Dyson?
It looks like Rob Dyson.
There it is. With his green St. Patrick's Day lei. Would you call that a lei? Even though it's not in Hawaii?
Well, I would only call it a lei in Hawaii, personally. I want to say that to Don Panos had he been laid today, meaning, you know, the fact that he had those beautiful shamrocks around his neck, but I didn't think it was the done thing in this part of the world.
Capello continuing to lead here, and again, after that stop, they've only got a lap on the team car, number 2 at this stage. Then there's another lap. Well, it's about the same lap for the second and third place cars at this point. There is the number 16 entry, the Thetford Norcold, Riley and Scott. Now that's the new Mark III C variant, and it's vastly different, isn't it?
Very untested, brand new car delivered here. There is Rob watching his car. That's the car he just purchased.
I wonder, is he looking, saying maybe I should have bought an Audi? I doubt it, because he has been a Riley and Scott supporter for so many years, but this car is about 3 or 4 seconds off the pace of the Audi. Dave, you can add?
Well, and Derek, they really hope it will be an Audi, in their words, someday, because they know that's the mark that they're shooting for. And this weekend, in talking with the guys around the garage area there in the paddock, they told me a lot of the things that Riley and Scott have not been able to do yet include the quick change parts. In other words, they, at the last moment, had put the car together and did not work on quickness as far as changes go. In fact, they changed only their second motor on Friday, and it took them 6 hours. Now, that's not the kind of change you can make at Le Mans and do anything. So they really want to work hard on those quick change elements, but they don't even have them in place at this point. So as you say, it's still very developmental at this point.
You can actually see just the car is very nervous. He had a real wild moment there in that turn, and I was talking to Butch just when he got out of his first session, and he said the car is very good, has great potential, but right now it isn't very quick and nice to drive.
There's our second place, number 2, Infineon Audi R8. That is in. Let's go down to Alan DeCadney.
Yes, Frank Wiener's staying in the car. He's definitely not going to get out. He's had himself a drink. The fuel is going in, of course, and they are poised to change the front tires and possibly the rear as well. No, they're not going to change the rears. I don't think they're going to change the fronts. No, there will be no tire change. They're checking the brake rotors. That's right, he's got this little infrared gun. He points at it. I have to say, I was trying to think of a good analogy for these cars. They're like a Swiss watch. Look, you don't even have to put oil in.
Alan, I know we discussed it earlier. Isn't it amazing how easy they make it look? They don't have panic driver changes. They don't have punctures. They haven't hit anybody. It just looks easy. This team is that well prepared.
Well, that's exactly right, you see. They make it look too easy. I mean, it's almost, if you were watching our speed vision transmission of this race, you might be lulled into a false sense of security watching these Audis, that it's all a bit too darn easy. But that, of course, is Reinhold Jost. You know, he's such a clever operator, and he's been at it for so long. I would rank him as in the top 2 endurance team managers of all time. I put him up there with John Ward. He's an absolute demon man, and it is him that one thanks, or Audi thank, for the results they get at these kind of races.
And during that pit stop, too, the technology is not just on the cars, is it? If you can't work on the car while they refuel and do a driver change, but you want to know what you need to do with brakes, they come up with an infrared gun that'll shoot through the wheels. Don't touch it, can't touch it, but still get all the information you need. The development is absolutely amazing here. Wire, Yost, good comparison. We are back at Sebring. There is the number 43 Schnitzer BMW on board with that car right now. Again, you see the logo of BMW Motorsport. This car run by Schnitzer is one of the inline 6s, as you can tell by the engine note. In short order, it will be picking up one of those BMW Motorsport built V8s. They will be running that car, as will the Prototype Technology Group. They'll eventually all be running those V8s. You know, we were talking earlier about how Spirit of the Rules, as we watched the number 2 Audi go by, Spirit of the Rules, Porsche being upset. Well, of course, back when PTG was sort of the front runner in the GT3 division, it was then called, Porsche came out with this new 911R, GT3R, and they went, well, now this is a huge new development, and BMW was upset about it. So part of it's just the politicking of the sport. Somebody else builds a little bit better or more effective package at this point, and things change.
And remember, it's important to point out, Spirit is what you're talking about. This car is absolutely within the rules of GT racing. And I will tell you something else. What a fabulous looking motor car. That just looks the business, that BMW M3.
It has very much like a German DTM kind of look to it, doesn't it? With those wide fender flails, you know, more aero on the lower part of the chassis.
Great.
Just look how flat it is. I mean, it really is so flat going around the corners. If you actually look at the other cars, the Stuck cars, you'll find that they seem to roll a lot more.
Right.
I noticed it earlier watching out the track.
Now here, the engine note there, it's that high revving V8 sound, but it's a distinctly different sound. It actually sounds like some of the Trans Am cars, like Lou Gelati used to run with the crossover pipes. It really, in the small diameter on the pipes, it's an interesting note to it. This is an M3, obviously, and there isn't yet on the road to go out and buy a V8 M3, but BMW makes a nice line of V8 powered cars. The 540 and the 740 are all V8s.
And what is good about the fight now on the racetrack between Porsche and BMW, it really has caught the interest of both factories. Both factories are both manufacturers, BMW and Porsche, are passionate behind the success of potential success of this GT class. That is great. That is what drives this class to greater heights. And when we talk about manufacturers in this series, we should also remember Chrysler will be back midway through this year. They are developing a P car, a prototype car at the moment. Cadillac will be back with a development car, not the ultimate car that they will have in 2002. And also we should mention MG, the great name of MG from England, will also return to Le Mans this year. So Derek Bell, this is almost a resurgence, isn't it, of sports car racing, maybe to get back to the IMSA heydays that we've seen in the past.
Most definitely. I mean, these people will come back if they can see some future. It's just that there's been this indecision over what's happening to sports car racing, and now it's starting to show positive, future, and that's why they're coming in. Of course they will. They've got to. They want to expose their products.
Exactly right. And of course that's why BMW is involved, certainly. And we have an opportunity to visit with Dr. Mario Tizan of BMW, who discussed their decision to put their factory effort in the GT category.
We are really positive about ALMS. The series has developed quite well over the past years. And for us it's very important to be in the States, to race in the States, because it's a big market for BMW. And especially when we were there with our LMR prototype, our colleagues in North America said to us, it's great that you are here with the LMR, but what really counts for us is the M3, because our M customers in the States are all race nuts, and they are closely watching what we do with the M3 and ALMS. So it was clear to us to focus on the M3 and to build a new car for 2001.
Will you race at Le Mans?
We will not be in Le Mans this year, certainly not. The car is still under development, so what we really focus on is to do the ALMS series this year, and there is no room to do such an important and demanding race like Le Mans.
That's going to be great. That GT battle is going to be fast and furious. Dirk Mueller here behind the wheel of the number 43 car, again still running the inline six. Obviously they're anxiously awaiting the development of the second and PTG, Prototype Technology Group, their cars as well. They will all be running those cars, and then I think the fight in GT will well and truly be on at this point. Derek, that gets back to what you're talking about, whether it's prototype or whether it's GT level. It's all about exposure. It's all about marketing and letting people know what they're capable of.
Absolutely, and this series could really put it there for them, as long as we get this stability for the future, which we mentioned just now, and it is heading that way. Don Paynos is so adamant that this is the way it should go, and I admire him immensely for that vision he has.
He has fought hard to bring it back to that point as well, back to the glory days, if you will, and it's awesome to see it. There right now is your top 10 overall. It's still Ronaldo Capello up front. Just a little over 6.5 hours in, 5.5 hours or a tad less remaining here in the Sebring 12 hours. We are on board right now with the leader, Ronaldo Capello, in the number 1 Infineon Audi R8, of course fielded by Reinhold Jost. And Derek Bell, a little bit earlier, Alan DeCadney mentioned that he would rank Reinhold Jost right up there with a certain John Wyer. You've had the privilege of driving for both of those guys. That must be just an incredible saga for you.
Well, I mean, yeah, to drive for John Wyer was very special. I drove the Porsche 917, 246 mile an hour at Le Mans down the straight there. It was incredible in those very colors you see there. And it was remarkable. He was such an organized, technical person. And then I got the good fortune to drive for Reinhold Jost on very many occasions and at Le Mans. And he really was a modern-day John Wyer.
And you were talking about when you ran for Jost, of course, it wasn't this factory affiliated. He ran independent Porsche 956s and 62s. So you're talking about those different teams, the new man, and all of that. That has such a great history at Le Mans.
Absolutely, but when I drove for Reinhold, it in fact was in the factory car. He ran the factory cars for them 1 year, and I drove with Jonathan Palmer, and I can't remember who else. We had lots of problems with tyres that year, but Reinhold Jost was so immaculate. His cars were always so good. Beautiful.
And the current Audi factory program that he is overseeing reflects that. But good look at the eyes of Johnny O'Connell there, taking a sip out of the drinks bottle as they're getting ready to start up again. A lot of attention made to the switches. They are really working on those. And is this the team car in? It is. The number 4 Corvette coming in as well. And that's out of the lead.
Yeah, Frank Freon is behind the wheel of that number 4 car, and he's going to. There's a driver change. Yeah, there is.
They look a bit surprised by that stop. They weren't really ready, were they?
Yeah, it looks like Andy Pilgrim's going to be getting on board. And the interesting thing was we were kind of monitoring stuff here as well. And Oliver Gavin was closing on Freon at the rate varying with traffic, 2 to 4 seconds a lap. So obviously, Gavin has the bit between his teeth, and you wonder if there's a little problem with the 4 car. Are they just running a pace?
In a way, I don't quite know what happened there, but if I had been Corvette, I'd have tried to bring the number 4 car in first, and then he would have been straight into his spot and had the number 3 slide in behind, instead of making them have to push it back the way they did. And that, to me, was a bit of poor management there.
Unless the number 3 could not make another lap confidently with fuel. Would they run it that close, Derek?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Maybe not.
I thought so. I'd have planned it to bring them all both in a bit earlier.
Andy Pilgrim has become almost a coach to drivers on this team. When the Dale Earnhardt and Dale Jr. ran at Daytona, Andy Pilgrim went to all the tests and literally brought them along day by day, and then lap for lap at Daytona, just trying to give them all the information he had to bring them along. What a great performance that was by the Earnhardt and Pilgrim at Daytona.
And we heard him earlier today. Of course, he was talking to the drivers in this car, talking to them about where to manage tires, where to ease off a little bit to keep those tires alive. They've been struggling getting the tires to last almost half the stint on occasions, and they've been getting a lot more life out of them.
For those of you, as we see the number 4 car come back out, so for those of you who want a quick update on IRL, Greg Gray is on the pole for the first race of the championship. Sam Hornish of the Pennzoil car is beside him in the front row. As I look down through its Ward, Gregoire, Robbie Buell, number 18 is going to change the nose here.
If I may say so, that's because they want the lights ready for the night. Okay.
The right-hand side light went out on the other nose cone.
Yes, it wasn't working.
You see that earlier?
Yeah.
And one of the BMWs, the factory BMW, has a right side light gone also.
We always used to do that in the long distance races. We had another body on because the nose, all the light panels get so dashed by the sand and the grit that the visibility is bad.
Well, I remember the year that it was a few years ago that terrible rain, and the Toyotas were running so well, and in one of the Nissan machines, a near blind John Paul Jr. with no windshield wiper fogging up, put in an unbelievable drive, took 2 laps back from Fangio, and when it got dark, the lights wouldn't work, and they lost it all.
Something else I'd like to comment about this team here, the Gulf team. They only have 2 drivers, Johansson and Guy Smith. Audi come here with 3 drivers. And Derek, I know we discussed it earlier on. Why do they need 3 drivers? But the answer being
that they wanted to get all 3 drivers used to sharing the car together before they go to Le Mans.
Yeah, so this is literally a dress rehearsal. It's not that they need rested drivers and they need 3 necessarily, but that the team is working in lockstep, driver per driver per driver, exactly as they will go to Le Mans. Such is the level of preparation these boys go to.
But I also feel very strongly that they overlook, these guys here in the Gulf car, it was such a late deal, I think they overlook just how wearing this racetrack is, and I think they'll be very tired by the end of this race. I believe they should have had 3 drivers.
Interesting.
It's very, very physical, very hot. You know, it's a British team. I know Johansson knows all about it, but I know very few teams in recent years have finished successfully with just a pair of drivers in these cars, however easy they might be to drive.
Especially in these conditions.
Okay, but Derek, in the older days, when you ran with Jack Hicks, you ran 24 hours with just 2 drivers.
Ah, but men were men.
The men were men. Now they're not.
Also, too, they're very good, but part of it, isn't it, that the loads the drivers feel in the cars with all the increased grip and aerodynamics now, it just pounds you to death.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you can't compare it. I mean, everybody used to run 2 drivers. It was physical. It was the fact that you could get away with it, but now we have all these G-forces and downloads and everything like that. You have to have 3 drivers. I remember Jackie Knight drove with 2 drivers right up to a certain point. He wrote to me, he said, we've got to have 3 drivers this year. I can't handle it.
Back to one of our privateer entries, because our email across the bottom of the screen just asked for more coverage of Dyson. There it is right there. The brand new Riley and Scott. Elliott Forbes Robinson stays in the car, but this is probably one of the better of the privateer team that doesn't have an Audi. And this is very much a test session for this brand new Riley and Scott car.
Very developmental, and they've done a lot of work themselves after getting the car from Riley and Scott. And you know what, when he's out on a track and you see it from a distance, it looks like a white stripe around the top of his helmet. You guys were talking about the lays and the like. That is a Hawaiian lay painted on his helmet. His wife is Hawaiian, and he always wants to have her with.
Okay.
And this is the race for the GTS lead, and by the way, looks like Oliver Gavin has been able to sneak by and take that away after the pit stop by the number 4 machine. Gavin was able to get by, so the Seline now is out front. There it is, and there is the second place machine, number 4. And again, that car now being piloted by Andy Pilgrim, so two very, very stout drivers and two very quick cars.
Quick email here, we're getting them by the hundreds. This is from Ian, Mercury 88 at AOL. Tell Derek I'm having a couple of pints of Guinness for him today. Of course, everybody is on St. Patrick's Day.
Have you had yours yet? I don't know.
No, I actually wouldn't drink Guinness, but I have a brother-in-law who could sit down for a session and drink 18 pints of Guinness and still walk home. And the walk,
who's home?
The walk would be a little bit longer than normal as he goes left and right, but he always gets there. Next morning, he's fresh and ready to go.
I don't know how you know.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable. Well, there is your new GTS leader again, Oliver Gavin, doing an absolutely sensational job. And Andy Pilgrim is close. He smells opportunity. And there are some fans here at Sebring, some 100,000 of them, folks. Welcome back, everybody. There's a good look at the champion Audi R8 that is having a very solid run here this weekend. We're very happy to welcome into the booth another driver for champion, of course, running in the World Challenge GT division. Teammate to Derek Bell, that's Michael Galati. You were involved in an unbelievable race with old foe and nemesis and friend Peter Cunningham here on Friday. Ended up a close second, but it was one of the best races we've seen in some time.
Yeah, it was a very interesting race, actually. I mean, too bad it was too many yellows, but it was very close, and I was very excited, I think, it was a good show.
Now, you're running one of the Audis that is much more stock-based, obviously, with the Quattro system here. You were up against Peter's Acura NSX, and it looked like certain parts of the track you were strong, he was fast here and there. How did the Quattro system work here, especially later in the race?
Well, you know, that's what we were hoping. It was going green always. I mean, because probably we have some advantage on the grip, but that's not happened. You know, we did like 6 laps, and then we went full course yellow for another 3-4 laps, and then another 2 laps, another full course yellow. So they did not play for us, but definitely the Quattro system, it's incredible. Just launching out of the corner, it's tremendous. But we were lacking a little bit at top speed, and I think the NSX, because the weight and the horsepower they have, I think they just he was just sitting over there playing with me, I think.
And of course, that is the World Challenge GT and Touring that we will see live all season long here on Speed Vision. But Mike, now tell me the truth. Just because you're an Audi driver, have you had a little dream that maybe someday you might step into this thing and get a chance to see what this type of horsepower feels like?
Well, I got a big dream, actually.
Yeah.
And I told Mr. Mirage there's a big picture of the R8s in our trailer, you know, in the S4 trailer. And every time I sit on that trailer, I just keep on looking over there. I don't see my dream in front of me, but, you know, I hope it comes true.
Maybe you should go over with a highlighter and change Andy Wallace's helmet paint job into yours. Subtle hints.
They got some flags over there. You just still wanted the helmet to just get in. And it will be a dream for me. I mean, it really just, it's a fantastic opportunity to be with the program right now. And we hope we will bring it home.
I want to ask you about that because obviously I've been following your career for a long time, watched you racing in SCCA club events, you did a number of runoffs that were very strong, then you stepped up, ran in the lower tier of the World Challenge, and then that's become now that huge touring car program with a lot of success. You've always excelled in everything you've driven, and it seemed like it took a while, but all of that paid off, didn't it, when you got the recognition by Audi and Champion to join Derek Bell on that team?
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, like I said, it's more than one dream. I mean, it'd be, especially with one of my idol being Derek, And
Me?
You, Derek, too, but you know, my friend Derek Bell. There's two Dereks over there, and it's incredible. I mean, I mean, when I first started, I was just dreaming driving some of these cars, and now it's really come true. And the problem is I just stay on the low rank for a long time. I never really marketed myself, and never went, you know. So now it's really come true, so it's fantastic.
180 plus miles an hour, 2 G's of lateral load. You can handle that.
I think I could.
You're going to give it a shot.
You know, we would not do 180, we'd do 147 or something like that. But
well, don't give up hope, because remember, a certain driver by the name of Dindo Capello came straight from the Audi touring car ranks right in to these cars and has acquitted himself fairly well, Michael. So don't go anywhere, and stay put for just a second here. So we're watching some of the onboard action here. Unfortunately, there's another manufacturer that we've been following, of course, through the season that has had some problems. Well, let's go back. Oh, and a problem here is this. We think this is the 43 car. This is the 43 Schnitzer BMW, and that looks like it. There's no driver in it. It's a mechanic behind the wheel. That usually means it's going behind the wall.
That is terminal.
It's a very sudden development.
That is so sad, because that is such a good job. Remember, this is still a development program. The button was not pressed on this V8 program until September. So really they were behind so much. Dave, you down there?
Yeah, and I just spoke with Charlie Lamb, the director for the program here, and he said it was a cylinder head. They are withdrawing the car.
Okay.
Now, this was the car that Leto and Mueller ran at Texas, of course, and now they've got the upgraded or the V8. So this is a car they're going to go, we believe, behind the wall here. A tough problem. It's not the first time, though, we've seen a car go behind the wall today. We were leading to this just a little bit sooner. The Panos team, it's been a bit of a struggle for them here this weekend as well. Earlier on, the number 51 of Graf Salas went behind the wall with alternator and overheating problems. Then the 50 car, David Brad behind the wheel, had a big fuel spill during refueling. He got out, he got back in. That car too was dealing with some struggles with overheating, and then finally a gearbox let loose on that car, and it has been retired permanently as well. We are back on board with the touring car driver who successfully made the leap into the LMP 900 ranks with great success. I got Michael Galati nudging me here to keep that reminder alive. We'll be right back. Welcome back, folks, and that is your leader in GTS. Once again, the number 26 Seline, currently being driven by a very fast Oliver Gavin. But there's the margin back to second place in the class. The number 4 Corvette, Andy Pilgrim there. Last time by start finish, the margin about 8.5 seconds, and it has been that close. And we have seen, I mean, it was obvious that the Seline quicker in qualifying at any rate. Obviously, Andy is driving the wheels off of that bed right now, staying as close as he is to a very fast Oliver Gavin.
And Oliver Gavin really is beginning to run well on this thing. The last lap was a 2:03.1. Compare that to Andy Pilgrim's last lap at a 2:04.4. So in that lap alone, there was almost a second gained by the Seline over the Corvette.
Pilgrim doing a great job. You can hear how soon he gets on the throttle. He's very greedy with it, but he makes it work. Coming up on the number 6, that's the Prototype Technology Group. BMW, currently behind the wheel of that is Peter Cunningham. We were just talking with Michael Galati. Peter being very busy here this weekend. That car right now still right in the fray in the GT battle. Currently 4th in that category, a bit behind the top 3 machines right now. But nonetheless, a very good run. The Prototype Technology Group, that inline 6-cylinder car, same one as the number 43 that just had problems. But as BMW Motorsport creates more of those absolutely glorious V8 engines, that will this team will be fielding those cars as well. And I think having 4 of those cars going up against the huge number of Porsches out there, this GT battle is going to be exceptional.
Absolutely. Just look how hard he's driving this thing. Got the tail skipping out, exiting corners. Teammates in this are Hans Stuck and Boris Said. So, I mean, these cars have very serious driver lineups.
You can almost always tell when PD is really in full-out mode because he develops, I've seen it for years, I call it the Cunningham hunch. He just kind of hunches up on the wheel, and it's just fun to watch him work it, and he is out there hard. Back on board now with Andy Pilgrim on the vet.
While we're on board with Andy, let's just update you on another GM product. We mentioned earlier what Cadillac will do this year and next year. We have had a slew of emails for more information on the Cadillac. This one comes from Mark, a voter from St. Louis, Missouri, and he asks, I thought they were going to run this year, even after dropping the Riley and Scott. Where are they? Just to explain a little bit more, the Riley and Scott Cadillac, as we go on board the 66, the Riley and Scott Cadillac is still in existence. It's being heavily modified in England by a group led by Jeff Hazel, who's ex-Spice, ex-Williams team manager, ex-McLaren sports car team manager. Nigel Stroud, a British designer, is redesigning that complete car, and they will be back hopefully before Le Mans, but they have a limited schedule this year, and then a completely new design of car will be out for 2002. So the Cadillac program is alive and well, although it is not up front and out front of the races right now.
A lot of big plans on, especially for 2002, as you mentioned. On board here with the number 66 Racers Group Porsche of Kevin Buckler. He's the team owner. Dr. Stephen Earle right now behind the wheel of this car. And they sit back a little bit further in the GT division, back about 8th, I think, in class. Interesting story here. There's a number, of course, you've got the Alex Job team and the Kelly Moss team, but there's a couple of European teams that get some help from Porsche in terms of some paid drivers, a little bit of additional support. Kevin Buckler talked to him earlier. He said they're real proud of the fact that they're true independents. Their program here, they are true independents, and they're the fastest of that group, and they're very proud of that. And they always put a very good car on the track. Stephen Earle is a great driver. He does a lot of Ferrari Challenge and unsuccessful running. But Kevin Buckler, he's been on the pole in the GT3 class and the GTU class when he has come out and run in the past. He's a very fast driver.
And look at the fight here with Kevin in that blue car. Yep. Runs the Racers Group in California. Actually at Sears Point, number 3, back in it. Is this unscheduled? Are they in
Yes,
early?
they've been in and out 2 months.
Yeah.
They left, they had a very long stop just now, and they've just come back in again.
Back down to Dave.
Guys, unscheduled is a very good word for this right now. I asked the guys before he brought it in. They tell me there are some oil pressure issues here. And Chris Neifel, who's standing by just in case, he says, I'm sure it's an alarm going off. So it may be something very serious for the number 3 Corvette. This in Neifel's swan song for Team Corvette. So they're taking a look right now. Looks like they're pulling down some data, and they're going to take a look at everything while they go ahead and change the tires and fuel it up.
Thanks, David. We also have a problem. We saw a quick shot of, I believe we have another Corvette, the Owen Trinkler Racing engine, BJ Zacharias behind the wheel, and the Riley and Scott from Dyson is making a stop in pit lane. You know, very early in the race, this is unscheduled, we heard they were talking about dumping a lot of oil into that car. They weren't sure it was going to last too long, Dave, and yet they're still running.
And lately, Greg, they've been adding water. That's what Louis Morasso is doing right now. The crew member going to the left-hand side. They're going to go ahead and change, it looks like, the front as well. There's not a whole lot of damage on it, but someone mentioned earlier that they were going to have change over to the night front end, so to speak, where the lights were all working. So I don't know if they had a light down or not. Don't see any of the other drivers standing around at this point. But one of the interesting things about it, guys, is that they have been adding water like this, but they expect to. They're running a little bit hot. I wanted to show you one more thing. Actually, I don't see it now. Right behind the front end, don't know if our camera can come in on it, there's a couple of holes that have introduced themselves during the running of the car. And at first they look very symmetrical, like the guys had pounded out in order to get more air into the car. But that's not the case. Actually, rubber on the track came through there like bullets. In fact, Butch Leisinger told me it was like bam, bam, they just shot through. And they're very symmetrical all the way across. So they also have some body issues in terms of strength on the Riley and Scott Mark C.
And Derek Bell, we were watching, they were working on the engine bay of that car. They hook up a pressurized system to get pressurized water into that, and it seemed to be coming out from somewhere it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, they don't take a radiator cap off to top it up. They pressurize it in, as they have done for years. Same time, is pushing it out of somewhere else, as you so rightly say, Greg. I don't think they need the night lights, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a tough break. This is the number 17 Trinkler Racing Corvette. Runs in the GT division. As I said, BJ Zacharias behind the wheel. They think that may be simply going a little bit too long on fuel. They're out of it. We'll be right back. We are back at Sebring, folks, and we have an interesting development here on board with Ronaldo Capello as he is chasing Guy Smith in the Johansson Racing Golf Audi R8. Now, the problem is we've been following the problems with mirrors on these cars, kind of making light of it, although there is some concern. Well, apparently now there is some concern from Professional Sports Car Racing, sanctioning body of the American Le Mans Series, as they are now very worried about that, particularly as we're approaching nightfall here, that these cars don't have mirrors, and they may be forcing them to do something about it. And we just saw some very close dicing between these two cars working traffic, and that's when those mirrors come into serious play. And I mean, there are some interesting moments there.
Absolutely, and as nightfall begins to come here, this is going to become an even more serious problem. But on the right side, the driver cannot see anything on the right side of these cars. And then right-hand turns, you can't see somebody coming down the inside. And it's okay when your car is faster than everybody else. But Guy Smith ahead in the Golf car right there is unsighted and probably on half the racetrack, Derek, and does not know where that leading factory car is.
Well, we saw it just now. We saw the yellow stripe down in the number 2 car trying to go by, and he chopped him right off. And he went, whoop, his mirrors, he just couldn't see anything. And as we said earlier, professional, your peripheral vision is atrocious with these helmets that we wear, and they've got to be so aware.
And they're coming into a huge group of traffic now as well. And this is like right here. He can't look in his mirror to see if he's cleared that car to be able to move over to take a different line. I mean, it affects overtaking as well.
No, look, he won't know that the silver car, number 2 car's right behind him. Guy hasn't probably got a clue, unless they're calling him on the radio.
Look at this. No rear view mirrors at all on Stefan Johansson's car. Guy Smith behind the wheel right now. That is a major problem.
It's more than a problem. I think it's a legal problem. I don't think you're allowed to race without mirrors on your car. Otherwise, why have them in the first place?
Well, I think that's what the officials are starting to address here. Ooh. Closing the door there.
Now that was a forced issue to try and get down inside him before he turned right onto this long back straight.
There's a different battle. The vet, that was Andy Wallace going by. Now here comes this group. Oh, and he got him, and he forced the issue in traffic, and now Smith sneaks underneath the number 3 vet.
Whoa. I would say Smith was so overwhelmed by that car suddenly appearing in beside him that he backed right out of it, and hence, never got by those GTS cars.
And remember, Johansson's car has had trouble with his radio to the pit right from early in this race, so the chances are he's got no mirrors and no radio communications.
So a spotter wouldn't even help in that scenario.
It will be interesting as this thing unfolds here, whether Marty Kaufman at Professional Sports Car is forced to perhaps make a move and maybe alert the teams first of all to give them an opportunity to take at least a lengthy pit stop and try and fix that.
They know the rules. If there's a rule there, I'm sure they'll try and fix it. But to me, you would think it wouldn't be that difficult to get a piece of aluminium sheet foil and just tape it, or put the foil on the mirror and then tape it right around very tightly. I would have thought that would have been sufficient. It would still reflect, wouldn't it?
And you know what? Rear view mirrors are not really a spare parts item that you carry normally.
Very good point. I mean, they have to be getting very creative here, one would surmise as well.
Nobody says that you have to be able to see anything out of them. They just have to be there. So you could put anything you wanted in there, even if it didn't show the car behind.
Interesting here, of course, motorcycles, the road racing motorcycles don't have mirrors either, but there you can get your head turned around and look back.
Oh, that's easy. Just as you're falling off, you look under your arm, don't you?
That's a good point. Skipping across the gravel and into
I don't know how they do it, those guys.
Those are the truly crazy people in motorsport. Exciting, but crazy.
But they think we're crazy because we're in the car. We can't roll down the road on our own body like they do. I've talked to many of them. They say, no, you're the crazy guys. You have a crash, you're wrapped up in it.
And here is Michele Alboreto, who is going to be climbing on board here. Fairly short order. The number 1 leading machine had a good stint earlier as well. Michele, if you remember Le Mans last year, everybody was wondering, well, how much is he going to be driving and the like, and he ended up doing some Ironman triple stinting, doing a superb job. So Michele, of course, been around for a long time, former Tyrrell Formula 1 driver, and just a very nice gentleman, too. He's very grounded, and it's always nice to have him. But didn't he get the last win for Cosworth at Detroit before the turbo era exploded? I believe he did. Awesome job. And sorry about this, but we've 23 now has made the move. Driving that car right now is Sasha Maassen, of course, put the car on pole in the early going as well, and the Seline is in.
And Gavin is out. Gavin is out, so the number 23 now. No, that's not relevant.
Gavin got out, so
Gavin's
going on
out.
board here, you'd think would be Borchler would be getting on board now.
But Gavin only did a single stint.
Yeah, it makes you wonder where the other driver is. Is he in there?
Terry Borchler, I mean, he was pretty tired when Gavin got in, because he's had Conrad in for a short stint, then Gavin in, so maybe Borchler is back in here.
And it is. Terry
Yes,
Borchler confirmed getting back on board that car. So that'll drop to second in GTS, and Andy Pilgrim will pick up the lead in the number 4 Corvette. And, well, I'll tell you what, every pit stop, this is a great battle here. This is what endurance racing is all about. When you're swapping the lead just because of pit stop, this is a great battle here with 7 hours plus gone at Sebring. Welcome back to Sebring, and that, again, we want to really point this out as that sun gets ever lower in the sky. That was just the camera. Now imagine what that's doing through an oily visor or a absolutely trashed windscreen on a GT car, and that machine ducks down into the pits. Ronaldo Capello bringing it in, and we believe, Alan DeCande, we're going to have a new driver on board.
Yeah, there's going to be a driver change here. We've got Michele Alboreto all ready to go in. He's all pumped up. I think he'll probably get in. They tell me they're going to have to change the pads and the rotors at some stage. They're possibly going to do it this stop. They're not sure. They've got it already here. Yep, there's going to be a driver change. Out he gets. That's Capello getting out, of course. Alboreto getting in. They're going to try and put a bit of oil in as well. I see a guy standing there with the oil syringe. So this car has actually done something over 6 hours of motor racing without adding a drop of oil, which is some considerable testament to the lack of oil burning qualities of its engine. Yeah, look how fit he is, old Capello. He's just done a nice double stint, just leaps out like a muscly little guy that he is. They're very fit, these men, of course. Now he's having a look at the front rotors on this car to see whether they want changing. He's having a look at the pads. They're going for rotors. They're going for rotors and they're going for pads. Now this will take a little bit longer, this pit stop.
Alan, when the mechanic looked at the rotor, there was something in particular he looked right at and immediately knew they had to be changed. So there must be some sort of a mark or an indicator that he can immediately see that says they have to do it right now or they'll get themselves in trouble.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. They have a witness mark on there that when that gets worn down to that mark, then basically they're going to change the rotors. So that's really what he's done. Don't forget, as these carbon discs, they work brilliantly well, but you don't get out for naught, as we say. Something has to wear during the passage of all that heat. So the disc wears out, the rotor wears out. So he took one look at it, as you say, had to change it. Dave, I think you've got something interesting for us up at the Dyson pit.
Yeah, Alan, Rob Dyson has taken a good long look at his motor now. He's actually just gone into conference a bit here. I heard them saying that they were running very, very high water temperatures, and we'll tap on Rob now that he's waited for us for so long, and now we finally pull him away from a conversation. Rob, I understand the temperatures were very, very high in the car, even going down the straightaway. Is that true?
I didn't hear your first part of the question.
The temperatures were very high, even down the straightaway.
Yeah, it's overheating. We've got a problem inside the engine somewhere. So we'll try to take a look at it when we roll it back into the truck, but I think we're probably out of the race.
Not officially yet, but you're considering withdrawing now?
No, I don't know what the rules are here. But we're going to take a look at it and see what the problem is. I don't think we can get back out, however.
Okay, and again, that hose they keep bringing back out is a water hose. They're going to continue to put water in and see if they can cool it down. But the guys were saying even down the straightaway, 250, 260 on water temp, that's pretty hot.
It's very high indeed, and obviously this is a development program here. That's the story of this machine. Of course, he's won Daytona. He's won so much, unquestionably a proven force in sports car racing. But somehow, in all these years, victory at Sebring has eluded Rob Dyson.
Sebring is the one major sports car race in this country that we haven't won. We've won every other one but Sebring. We've come second at Sebring 3 times. One time in '97, which was we felt was not the best of circumstances. I'll put it to you that way, to be charitable about it. And then a couple other days we just came up short. Closest finish in Sebring, 1-2 in Sebring history was when we ran against the BMWs in 1999. We came awful close to winning that, lost by about 8-9 seconds. I think that when you come that close again, it's the emotional commitment to doing something and it's our plan to go, our intention to go back and try to put that one up on the boards. It's one that I've wanted to win as well. I mean, it's also an important car race. In different ways as important as Daytona. In other ways, it's just one of these things that is just kind of, I don't want to stop racing and still have that mountain not climbed. I want to try to climb that mountain at least a couple more times.
Unfinished business?
I think that's a good way to put it. The unfinished business is Sebring.
Welcome back to Speed Vision's live flag-to-flag coverage of the 49th running of the Exxon Superflow 12 hours of Sebring, watching Terry Borchler in that beautiful Seline S7R that is currently in a huge battle in the GTS division. We want to remind you, you can email us here. We are interactive here. You can email us at sebring@speedvision.com. Sebring@speedvision.com, or just click on the link if you go to speedvision.com. You can go right there as well. Link it, it'll come right to us. And we have had Jeremy Dale and Bob Barsha have been manning the computers, answering a number of your emails personally. But Derek Daly, I know that there have been some they've handed off to you. One of them addressing this very car.
Exactly, and I will tell you, the speedvision.com webpage is one of the most visited motorsports sites on the web right now. We have had thousands of emails here this afternoon. One of them was, what is the power plant in the Seline S7? It's a 7-liter Ford, basically a Ford V8. Second one was, that came from Peter Bennett. Charles Stacy asked, are cool suits illegal under ALMS rules? Answer is no, absolutely not.
Vital.
Vital, exactly. Yeah, not many people use them, but they are not illegal in any way. Derek, you have one?
Yes, this is from Christian Swanson. Why is the track so bumpy? Is that an intentional part of the endurance test, or is it just a circumstance? It's the circumstance of this track. They haven't neglected it, and the track has been here for 50-odd years now, so that's why it's rough. We all said back in 1970 we were never coming here again, and I've been here 20 times. We still keep coming back for more.
Remember, this is an old World War II Air Force air base.
Even where they've repaved sections of it to smooth it out, it's still laid over a lot of old runway spots, and that, I mean, that gives. You have another one, Rick?
Yeah, I also have an email here, and the question is, it looks like the entry to turn 17 is coned off, so as the cars are forced close to the wall. Why is the wider radius turn not available?
The reason for that is the wider radius turn that's a special part of the track laid out for the racing schools that are used here, the Barber Series as well as the Pano schools. They use that as part of their short course, basically. It's not ever been part of, or I think they use it for a little bit, didn't like it, they're back to the old configuration for Sunset Bend. So that's why you see that nice paved area that they're not really using. They wanted to retain some of the flavor of the original track. And the question about cool suits, I was going to ask you, they're great, obviously, but they don't they create problems with driver changes with all the hoses and the stuff you've got to deal with it.
Indeed they do, and the trouble is keeping everything cold enough. It's all right maybe on a one-driver change race and a 3-hour race like we used to do in IMSA. But in these races, keeping that cool unit cool is often a problem. And on top of that, there's nothing worse than when it breaks, when the system goes down, you're sitting there with a vest full of boiling water.
There is something coming out of the back of this Seline on the left rear corner. We have some great shots of this thing going away. But on the left rear corner, it looks like there's something coming out of the car or rubbing the ground. I'm going to keep a close eye on that.
Well, we've been watching it. That car obviously has been going very strong. There's the number 1 of Alboreto. Now, he did not go out long ago, and you know why he's coming in? Mirror. There it is. There's the mirror. There's the replacement. It has come to roost, folks. And well, I'll tell you, for something as minuscule you would think as a mirror, it's the old $2 bearing for Parnelli Jones at Indy.
In a way, to me, that's rather naive because these guys should have done this before. They've now been called up and he's going to penalise them.
I hope they have plenty of rear view mirrors because if they call him in, they're going to call Johansson in, they're going to call the champion car in, they're going to call everybody in.
Let's go down to Alan.
Yeah, no, it's, I tell you what it was a rear wheel nut was not done up tightly. That's what it was. They have actually put on another rear view mirror on the right-hand side anyway, but what he did is put the air hammer onto the rear right-hand wheel, and he banged up the wheel nut just a little bit more. So obviously Alboreto felt a bit of a wobble at the back there, and sensible fellow, in he came to have it adjusted. That's what they've done.
And he couldn't see it wobbling in his mirrors, but he does now.
Well, you know what? Earlier in the weekend, one of the drivers, I think it was Christensen, was out, came in, and they felt something very loose on one of the corners of the cars, went after it with wrenches, couldn't get it done, back behind the wall it went.
So how good do you think that super glue is? Because he literally stuck it on there for a couple of seconds and walked away. It didn't stick earlier. Is it going to stick now?
It almost like there were 2 black strips on the back of that mirror. I wonder if it wasn't Velcro, if it's a Velcro attachment as opposed to glue.
Now look what we have. Guy Smith and Johansson's car, the Gulf car, is now in second place on the same lap as the factory Audi. What a great job here with Johansson's car.
We actually have the top 3 right now on the same lap. The number 1 entry of Alboreto, Smith in the 18 Golf, and Bila in the number 2 machine, all on the lead lap, and we are 7.5 hours into the 12 hours here.
I have to say one thing here at this point. The guy that's running this golf team is a guy called Mike Earl. He comes from my home village in Sussex, England, and we started together in 1966 when I started in Formula 3, and he's worked with me through Formula 2. He then went on, of course, ran his own Formula 1 team, the Onyx Formula 1 team, and has been very, very involved in one of the great actual team managers in motorsport, and he's been hired to run this car this year. Quite interesting to see him out there in the Gulf show.
Yeah, Mike Earl ran the Onyx Formula 1 team when Stefan Johansson was the driver of that team.
Absolutely, and he got his best position for the Onyx. Was it 4th in the...
Yeah.
I can't remember where.
Yeah, so there's a lot of history and friendship between Mike Earl running this Gulf liveried car for Guy Smith, and they are doing a great job here. 3 cars all on the same lap, and we're way over halfway through this 12 hours of Sebring.
Well, a wonderful series of reunions obviously coming together here with the number 18 Golf Audi. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sebring, folks, and the margin between Michele Alboreto, the number 1 factory Audi, and Guy Smith in the number 18 Golf Audi, 6.3 seconds, and there it is. Number 1 in stop-and-go penalty for exceeding the pit speed limit. He did not make the stop this time. They just got word in via the board. They've been talking to him on the radio, certainly. He didn't make it this time. But when he makes that stop, which I'm sure they're going to argue vehemently about, because if that limiter in that car is working, they say you can't speed because of the limiter. Something's wrong with the calibration on the guns.
Good stuff here. Guy Smith about to take the lead. You know what? They can argue all they want, but they better argue after the race, not right now. Right now, when the official says get in for a stop and go, you better get in.
Oh yeah, you'll be going home otherwise.
Exactly.
And an interesting thing to note, folks, here, Alboreto's last lap of 152.8. Now, of course, traffic plays a role. Smith's last lap of 151.10. Bila's last lap was only about 40 seconds behind Smith, a 151.1. 1-2. So I'll tell you, Smith is doing an awesome job in this car right now.
And here he comes here. Now, I'm not saying the wheels are falling off the wagon here, but Alboreto sat for a long time. They put new brake discs and brake pads in that car. Then he goes out, comes back in, puts a new mirror, tighten up the rear wheel. Then he goes back out and he's back in for a stop and go. So suddenly, somebody lost a plot here for this factory car, and Stefan Johansson's car is about to look like a hero in about 15 seconds.
Let's see if he makes the turn in, and yes, he does. It's 60 kph, 60 kilometers per hour down the, and there the lights go. So he is now officially at this point.
I think there's the
working the rest on the limiter. There's your new leader, Guy Smith in the 18 Golf. Johansson Racing Audi R8 has just picked up the lead, and the #1 machine of Alboreto has not even made it to the pit stall yet. That gives you an idea of just how slow that approach is. This is a stop and go, we understand. There's the stop. Now they're holding them. It's actually a stop and wait. It's at about 5-second penalty, it looked like they gave him. He's back underway. Now we saw the lights still flashing.
You know, we don't know what's going to unfold here, but possibly the best thing that could happen for American Le Mans Series racing is for Johansson, the privateer, to win this thing, Derek.
Just to prove to everybody that you can do it. You can beat the factory teams, albeit maybe by a small error of infraction as it is. It's a long way to go. It's such a long way to go. We sat there in the lead with an hour to go, and we still haven't won it before, so don't count your eggs too soon.
Alan DeCatney, a huge development here.
Well, that's absolutely right, but I had a good look at it. He came down the pit lane. They reckon he violated on the way into his first pit stop. However, on that last time he came in, he stalled it. They weren't going to keep him waiting. He stalled it, so he started it again, spluttered off. And by the way, the rearview mirror went on with 2 pieces of double-sided sticky back tape, that mega stuff. So it's still on there. I don't think it will come off.
That's very interesting that it was, if Alan was right, maybe he, I mean, sometimes you just forget to hit the limiter button. I mean, you know, in the heat of battle, especially after, you know, coming in with problems.
Well, now Johansson's crew, led by Mike Earl, better get some of that double sticky back mega tape and some mirrors for his car, because I'm pretty sure they're going to, they probably have also been told that professional sports are concerned that these cars are running around without rear view mirrors.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, that they waited that long to put the mirror on if it was that easy a fix. It's interesting. Here we go. Guy Smith, the new leader, down into the pits. Now, at the time of that stop, Beeler was only 29 seconds behind Smith. So we would certainly expect to see a new leader as a result of this stop here. Let's head back down to the pit lane.
Yeah, he's staying in the car. Of course, that's his first stint. And the fuel's going in. They've got a lot of kit out here. They've got their rotors out and they've got their pads out. Are they going to use them? Well, we won't know until the wheels come off. Those can't come off, of course, until they finish fueling. They will all stand by.
Alan, is anybody standing there with any mirrors in their hands?
No, I don't see anybody standing there with a mirror.
However, and we do see the brake change tray, don't we?
In fact, he hasn't got either mirror in place.
Well, exactly, that's what I mean. We saw that earlier when he nearly got taken out.
They're going to go, yes they are, they're going to go for rotor change and obviously pad change at the same time. Now let's see how efficiently they manage to do it. Don't forget, this team hasn't had much practice at this because they've only just got their hands on the car, but it's a bit of a struggle.
Nor do they
this
have
front left one doesn't want to come off. Look.
Yeah, Alan, they don't have the trick tools that the Audi factory team had.
Well,
they're almost doing it here with pieces from the...
Well, with respect, they don't have those trick tools. They're using a couple of 3/8 drive ratchet extensions, which they stick into the holes of the disc to try to pull them back. They haven't had time to make the tricky stuff that Jost's got. And actually, those discs, he's got it on. Good man, good man. It's a very good system, this, I have to say.
Excuse me, Alan, but right next to his knee, I thought I saw that trick expander that the factory team just used. He never went to it. Right there. Now he's using it.
That's for expanding the
that's
calipers.
to get the pads out. Look, the rearview mirrors are going on too, by the way. Only they're using regular tank tape to tape their mirrors around the outside, rather than the Demon Mega sticky back foam tape, which is what the other guys use.
What was that? Demon Mega sticky back.
Demon Mega sticky back foam tape. If you have that, you have everything in motor racing.
And here we go. There's the number 1 machine not only in the lead, but a lap up now with the number 2 car. A scant 3-4 seconds behind. I mean, it's that close. While the number 18 sits there, and there's your GTS leader, Andy Pilgrim. Brings the vet in. And, whoa, problem there. He got hung up on the hose, couldn't get out. He's your leader in GTS, and looks like a driver change. Pilgrim stepping out.
The amazing thing here, boys, we've gone incident-free virtually. We have not had a full course yellow yet. That is remarkable when you mix 3 different classes of car, 4 different classes of car, all on the track at the same time.
And right here, once again, this is our battle for the lead, folks. There goes Alboreto in the number 1 car. There comes Frank Biela. And Biela, very, very fast. He has been able to check that. They had Christensen on board. I looked at the helmet, and the scoring monitor says Biela, but it's Christensen's helmet, I believe. And we all know Tom Christensen, I think, is one of the absolute fastest drivers in the world right now. Let's go back down to Alan DeCadney.
Yeah, they've had a problem here on the front right. What happened is, as they pulled the old disc off, or rotor I should say, one of the pistons on the 6-point caliper stuck out so far, and they couldn't get it back in. Luckily, they got that special tool that we were talking about earlier, pushed it in, managed to squeeze the piston back, but I think they've got another problem now. They're having to take the snout off. That's come off. I can't quite see what this is all about. There's some other problem here that's arisen. I don't know what it is. I don't know what this problem is now, but there's something going on here.
Alan, if the piston came out, do they have to bleed
what's going on
the
with the
brakes?
Corvette?
And the Corvette is still in, and this is a routine but long stop. The Seline just went by, and so I think that it's got a full lap before it will come by and take the GTS lead. Now, Alan was seeing a team that was very unfamiliar with their tools in making brake pad and rotor changes. This team is one that should know them very well. We're riding right here with Ray Gongola, who is changing the rotors and the caliper, or the pads, on the left-hand side, and over on the right-hand side, Randy Hyatt is effecting the change. This was planned. Fans might remember that the car went without a brake pad change at Daytona, but that was with steel rotors. They could go a lot longer. So here they do have to make the change, and Frank Resinetti, tells me that they can do it in about 4 minutes. They've been 1 minute 30 at this point since the tires came off. So the guy's working very hard, a very experienced crew trying to make this change.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the trenches here. You're getting a rotor right in your face coming off of that car. Some awesome camera work by the Speed Vision camera crews, not only in the pits, of course, but around the track. But that's stellar. That is just awesome stuff. And there's number 26, Borchler. He gets around before that vet gets out. That'll be for the lead once again. So this battle continues to switch back and forth. Unbelievable developments. And meanwhile, we understand the number 18 golf cart still parked down in the pits, and you were going to allude to something about that. And we're also watching this battle. Well, hold on that battle at the front. Well, let's quickly go back down to Alan again.
Yes, it's really sad. They can't start the car. Guy Smith's in there. He's pressing the button. They've got something wrong with the starter. The problem with the pistons is that both the mechanics have to squeeze the pistons back at the same time. If you squeeze it back on one side first, the pistons on the right-hand side of the car push the pistons on the left-hand side out. That's what they had. This is the first time they've ever did it. They weren't to know that. Now they've got another problem down here. I think they may be changing the battery or something like that, because the car definitely does not want to start. I'm going to have a look inside there and see what it is.
All right, Alan, we just want to mention that while you're doing that, the number 26 Seline has gone into the GTS lead, while the number 4 Corvette sits up with the air jacks working on brakes. And at the same time, the Seline went by to pick up the lead. We had that incredible battle right here for the lead in the overall position here with, again, Christensen putting in a lot of pressure on Alboreto. Here's Borchler out front now in that Seline S7R. What an absolutely great drive and a great day they have put in here in a it seems like a long stop for that vet.
Wow, what a battle this is. Up front, the leaders are covered by a blanket. This GTS deal has changed back and forth for every hour here, and the GT battle is close. I mean, this is as good as it gets here.
It's incredible. We just got confirmation it is a battery problem on the number 18 Johansson Racing Golf Audi R8. So what a shame. And look at this, side by side. Christensen went for it, and Alvarado defending. I don't know whether he really intended to that abruptly, but they were working some traffic. But again, very close action, a very close call as they went by the Banana Joe's Lola Judd.
Now, Tom Christensen, remember, is trying to be the only driver in the history of this event to win it 3 times in a row in his only 3 starts. No one ever did that. So Christensen is the only guy who has that opportunity here. So that is a carrot for him too. But boy, these boys are going at it, hey?
They really are.
They really are.
I'd be pretty pleased that Alvarado would be pretty happy he had his mirrors on the car at that point, don't you? Yeah, it's going to be the major incident there. He wouldn't be as confident. Here we go. They're almost side by side coming up the straight. Ducks in behind again.
And a good story here as the number 4 Vet exits and back onto the track. The last lap by Alvarado and by Christensen, a 1/10 of a second difference. So Alvarado has responded, but he got by him. Christensen has picked up the lead, got around Alvarado, going in to that absolutely daunting and amazing turn 1 here. So wide in, so narrow out, you got to get it right.
And in fairness, Tom Christensen is a man on his way up. Alvarado really has reached the peak of his career, is on the way down, and just enjoys this ride. But Christensen, you remember, spent last year testing for the Williams Formula 1, well, for the Michelin tire company with the Williams F1 car, has a lot of experience, but still a career very much on its way up.
Here's the pass for the lead. He ducked back in behind at this point. There's the Vet coming up, but here he made the move.
That was the fake. That was the fake, as if he was going to follow him through. And this entry to turn 1 is so wide, you can duck down the inside. And once you take the road away from somebody else, they really just have to give up. You know what? He won that a lot there.
I'll also tell you one thing, as he came up into there, his mirrors would have been blurred by the setting sun behind him. He wouldn't have had much idea where the other car was.
Good point. Very
low sun behind him.
The sun here is going to be a serious factor here, so it's getting awfully low in the sky. And there it is. And that's what you're facing, going all the way down into sunset. You have in your mirrors and other corners, nightfall is upon us. We are back. Speed Vision's live coverage of the Endurance Racing Grand Slam. This is the second round of that. Of course, the opening round, Daytona. Now, the Exxon Superflow 12 hours here at Sebring. There is your recently new leader here. That is Tom Christensen on board the number 2 Infineon Audi R8. And, of course, it was a great pass of Alvarado. Lots of things developing. We had that great run by the Gulf Audi. That was waylaid by a very long pit stop. And by the way, it was 1969 was Gulf's first win in a vehicle in Gulf colors here at Sebring. Jackie Hicks, Jackie Oliver, a couple of great names, and a Ford GT40 back here. Derek Bell, a great era. And it looked for a minute there like Stefan Johansson might be able to bring back some of those memories, but now they're about 6 laps back.
Absolutely. I mean, you see that is such a pretty car, isn't it? In those colors, so clear and so clean, and, you know, just a historic color.
Look how quickly the sun begins to go down here. I mean, within 2 or 3 laps, look, the sun has suddenly gone down. It becomes much more dramatic, and you can clearly see the rubbing blocks underneath the nose cone of this Audi now begin to send sparks up, but the lights are flashing again. We had that earlier on where the lights flashed. Almost in the braking zone, those lights flash.
We used to have that on our cars, of course, when the lights were actually starting to break away inside the body. But this quality car shouldn't be doing that.
Well, if they're actually flashing them in terms of an overtaking maneuver, they have designed the ergonomics inside these Audi cockpits. You never have to move your fingers or hands more than just a millimeter, it seems, from those steering wheels. You can do an awful lot right there.
And that does make the driving so much easier. Remember, they just keep up and down shift on the paddle shifts on the wheels. They can keep their left foot on the footrest the whole time, supports their whole body, takes a lot of that stress out of them, and of course do everything from that wheel. When you see all the buttons on there, it's all there.
Let me just tell you something here. Christensen is trying to make a statement here because he is absolutely flying. There's your GT leader in the pits, but Christensen has gone, most of the drivers are in the 50s. Christensen is now in the 49s, 1 minute 49.5 on that last lap. He is making a statement while he runs away from people and runs out front here.
And Lucas Luhr has just got on board, your number 23 McKenna Porsche dealership, Alex Job Racing Machine. That was your leader in the GT3 category. Now, the number 42 BMW. That glorious V8 machine is taking back the point, but on its way out is Lucas Luhr to take the battle up once again. This is what we've been seeing in the GTS. Same in GT, changing on the pit stops, endurance racing at its very best. The number 23 machine about to get back out on track. Boy, look at that sun setting. That is one of the great pictures, whether it's on TV or some of the greatest still pictures from Sebring have that very same glow about them. Looking at the exit of the pit lane, there goes the number 6 BMW on its way by, and there's the Porsche back in the fight. But now, of course, as we said, 7th overall is the number 42 BMW, currently driven by J.J. Leto. The number 23 machine there is your new leader in GT, J.J. Leto, in the BMW V8 machine. And looks like he may be making a move in. Is he making a pit stop? No. He continues on, folks. So Leto out front in GT, and as you can see, the sun setting very quickly here. Takes on a whole different aura here at night. We'll be right back to Sebring. Welcome back to Sebring. Third place champion Audi has ducked into the pits, and Andy Wallace brought it in. He has stepped out. Dorsey Schrader back behind the wheel on this car, and they've already effected the driver change, refueled, and of course you can't get to the tires before the fuel is in and completed. Done it. He got it. He started it and killed, and he's back out and underway. So a pretty effective stop here for the champion team. But we want to take you back and show you something else. We talked about all the different elements of a pit stop here. Watch what Dorsey Schrader's doing. There's that little windscreen, little lip essentially. He puts in one that's just a couple millimeters bigger for the simple reason that he's just a few inches taller than Andy Wallace, sits that much higher in the car, helps the buffeting.
And if you don't do that, the air spills over the top of the cockpit, gets down underneath the lip of your helmet, and begins to lift the helmet off your head. And that is pretty serious at times at 180 miles an hour.
You find yourself going down the straight, pulling the straps of the helmet and putting your hand on top of the helmet and pull it down over your head. It's terrible.
That would mean no hands on the wheel there.
Oh, we've done that before.
Yeah, but you see how the windscreen piece that he put on is only about a ½ an inch higher, and that's all you need to kick the air up over the top of your helmet.
And crucial, very much it is. Now, of course, with the problems by the Gulf Audi, this has brought this car up into the top 3. There are 3 laps or thereabouts that, of course, changes with a pit stop. They just went down the 3rd lap. But 2 to 3 laps is the vacillation, if you will, up here. But still in all, with the problems they had early with that puncture that set them down a couple laps, they've really been running very, very effectively.
The one thing that Audi do, you might think, how did they choose the drivers? They choose them by the height, and they try to get 3 drivers of the similar height in one car and the other 3 drivers of similar height in the other, so they haven't got that problem of pieces of tape and stuff padding under the seat. And
I thought it was trying to get 3 of the 4 drivers whose names ended in O.
That's not difficult when you take
that helps us. Dorsey continuing on. We want to welcome to the booth Richard Breckus, who's the motorsport manager, BMW of North America. We're watching Dorsey here, but of course, you guys have to be awfully pleased with what's happened with that V8 that has come on board. All of the press information, all the context reports, this is a test. We don't think it's going to last. We're just here to learn. And this car is out front some 7.5, almost 8 hours into this.
Yeah, but it's still only 8 hours. We've got 4 more to go, so we still don't know if it'll last. But yeah, it's been great so far.
Exceeding your expectations?
Yeah, way. If you think about this week, we had a lot of teething problems with the car. It was tough to get it out, tough to get some laps done. And I think there was even some question, would we get it on the grid in time? And it got there just in time, and now it's running flawlessly.
Rich, I know the button was pushed on the V8 car pretty late, September last year. Did America have any influence on what to do with that particular car, or was it all Germany?
No, actually, this comes from us. Obviously, this is Motorsport in the U.S., the American Le Mans Series. We knew more than a year ago that it would be very difficult to compete with the 6-cylinder. With the new E46 M3 coming and the 3.2 liter, we knew that we'd have to do something to make it more competitive.
Okay, good.
Let me jump in here. We want to go back down to Alan Academy with a very familiar face to racing fans.
That's absolutely right. Turkey Bootson, it's a real joy to see you back in a motor race, and I know you're a lot fitter. What about this brake problem? I mean, do you know all about this brakes and the pistons and doing it in synchro?
Sure, when it's like this, when you change the pads or when you change the discs, you need to push the pistons back into their original position, but you have to do the same left and right in exactly the same time. If you make a mistake and do it a little bit earlier or faster on one side and the other one, there's a good chance that one pops out, and then that's it. You need to put it back together and bleed the whole system. It's a mistake that you should avoid.
What is your role exactly then with Champion?
Say again?
What is your role with Champion here?
Well, they've asked me to be the project manager for Le Mans. So I know Le Mans very well. They don't. They've never been to Le Mans. So I'm going to be the kind of a link between the race and my experience and the team. They want to do well at Le Mans. They have a great car, great team, good presentation, very efficient people, but they don't know the race at all. So I'm going to be teaching them from now until the race how to do it, and I hope that they will do very well.
That seems like a very sensible decision to me.
Well, yes, it's good because they really want to do well. They want to always wanted to do well, and we did very well in the past, but my experience I think will help for the race in Le Mans.
Well, they're running very well, very strongly. I mean, it bodes well for the 24-hour race, doesn't it?
Well, it's a good preparation for the race, for sure, yes. It's a second real race of the car with this team, so it's a good preparation for Le Mans. This is a very tough race, very tough racetrack. A lot of people make a lot of mistakes, and let's hope we can go to the end in this position where we are. We'll be very happy.
Have you decided on a driver lineup for Le Mans yet?
Not 100%, no. We're still discussing that. It depends on the possibilities and who's going to be available or not. We're hoping to get Andy Wallace. He's driving now, but he won't be able to make it, so we need to find a replacement for him. I think Didier Thies will be on the list.
Thank you very much, Thierry.
Although Thierry Boutsen looks well and has a smile on his face, he is in a lot of pain. His career ended at Le Mans in a Toyota, backwards into the barrier, had serious back problems, broke lots of vertebrae, had bone grafting, has metal screws and clips holding the bottom of his back together. And that's what ended that career. Now remember, Boutsen was a Grand Prix winner with the Williams Grand Prix team, was very successful in sports cars, but was forced to end his career against the barriers at Le Mans. I haven't seen him at a racetrack since then. Good to see him back.
It's wonderful to see him back, and of course his experience will be well lent to the champion team. 5 times he won in Grand Prix and very fast at Le Mans.